Great Odin's Raven!
I feel the need for speed.
Ow! Oh, no, not the beast! Not the beast! Ah!
Hey! Where did you get those clothes? At the toilet store?
And I thought my jokes were bad.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. It is Matt and Pat, and we are back. That's a lot of rhyming, probably a little more than I need to do.
We're Dr. Seuss.
Yeah, we're having a guys' weekend this weekend, and thought there's a lot of college football stuff going on. There's a lot of NFL with the season almost being over, and we haven't gotten to talk sports together in person. While being, well, I guess we've never really done this much in person together. I think we've only done a couple episodes in person together, but we figured why not? Let's do, it feels like an emergency pod, but it's not really an emergency pod because obviously there's not like emergency information that we're like, hey, let's do this.
I don't know, the more that comes out about Sherrod, the more I feel like it is an emergency because we've seen a lot of things that coaches do that's just insanity. This is the strangest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, I think and this isn't what we even really are planning to talk about a ton, but you think like, thinking about what coaches have done specifically themselves, seems like the biggest, like crazy.
This is worse than Bobby Petrino on the motorcycle.
Oh yeah, by far.
This actually 100% tops it.
It's
We're not the laughing stock anymore.
Well, that is nice for Arkansas, I guess. It is now.
Well, and some.
But here's the problem. Have we seen? And we're not going to make too much light of the situation. Have we seen his mugshot yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that picture. It can't be as bad as the Bobby Petrino press conference where he's sitting there with the neck brace.
It's just one guy's got a neck brace and one's got a jumpsuit on.
Yeah, I mean, I guess at least, you're right. In terms of a laughing stock, at least Petrino didn't do anything technically illegal.
I can't think of many other coaches who I've seen actually in prison wear.
Yeah, that
in
is
cuffs.
Pretty wild. And we will get to college coaching stuff later because that's one of the things we really want to talk about. Full disclosure, everyone, the two people who might be listening that aren't me and Patrick, maybe at the end of this thing, we've held off talking about certain things just because we're like, we're probably going to we kind of want to do a throwback pod, so let's do it. And we've started sentences to be like, let's save that for later when we're actually talking. So we'll get back to college coaches because that is a topic we wanted to talk about. I've got maybe a hot take or two, which I know won't surprise anybody who's listened to the show.
Why? Okay, hold on. We have the infamous, the big one, the Bucked Up Bowl on in the background, and coaches for Washington are basically congratulating each other at this point because they're up. I mean, they're smacking them by like 30. One of these coaches for Washington is just bleeding from the forehead.
Oh, did he headbutt?
I don't know.
Wow, that replay. That guy's wide open. I don't think anybody's ever been that wide open in the history of football.
But Jet Fish just dapped him up, like he wasn't just randomly bleeding on the sideline. Like that happens all the time. Jet Fish has never. He sees that daily.
I'm telling you. Well, because here's what's happened. I'm sure
that's a common thing in Washington.
They've got a bucket of the bucked up pre-workout on the sideline. And they're just taking shots of it all game. And so I think that's what's going on.
They're all 3 scoops deep.
They're literally all they're all bucked up, and that's why they're I can't think of what movie I was thinking of where there's the one crazy. The Replacements. Duh. everybody's like the former cop who's the linebacker. They're all that insane. And they get their headbutt and whatnot. Anyways, so we wanted to talk a little bit of NFL because we haven't got to talk much NFL. We're getting close to the playoffs. It's week 15, right? Am I mathing that right? Or is it week 14?
I would think 15.
I think it's 15. I said 15 and then I questioned myself, and I'm 98% sure it's week 15. We're past the point of bye weeks. We thought, hey, let's talk a little bit of the playoff window or playoff picture. Obviously, that's up in the air. We got another 3 weeks of that of regular season games, and so that's going to change a lot, especially in the NFC. But we thought, look, let's talk a little bit about maybe some things that are surprising, maybe some things that maybe aren't surprising to us, but might be surprising to the rest of the people. And then we'll maybe talk a little bit of playoff and what we maybe see happening from here on out. So, Patrick, you start. What has been your most surprising thing so far this NFL season?
The common thing, if you'd ask most people, it's that New England is 11-2, which is surprising. Don't get me wrong. It's surprising that they're leading that division when Buffalo exists. But Buffalo not winning that division isn't too shocking for me because they continue to not really address the offense. There's no hyper focus on fixing the offense. So that's the most shocking thing to me is that the AFC North sucks.
Here's the thing. I'm going to disagree with you on that.
What?
I don't think that...
They have two of the league's best quarterbacks, and it's not shocking that they suck?
I don't... Ooh. See, this is where I think... And this is why I think I'm not surprised. When you start talking about the quarterback... I mean, look, talking about... Obviously, you got the Browns in there. No surprise that they're terrible.
Surprise they suck.
Not surprised they're terrible at all. I think, actually, if you want to go AFC North, the shocking thing is that currently, as we sit right now, the Pittsburgh Steelers are in first place in that division. And
you can't win a division at 8 and 9, so...
I mean, but still, you're looking at... I think what doesn't shock... You said it shocks two best quarterbacks. Okay, wait, you're talking... I assume Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, right.
Joe Burrow is so injury-prone. I feel like...
It is time that we put the label.
Absolutely. And when he plays, is he one of the best quarterbacks in the league? Absolutely. Yeah. I don't think anybody has a question about that. But the cliche, the best ability is availability, and that team is hot dog water when Joe Burrow is not the quarterback. That defense is
they've been bad for a while.
Awful.
I don't know why Browning was not what we saw the last time he had extended play. Because the last time he had to make several starts, he was actually a pretty decent quarterback. He managed the game extremely well. And then this year, it was disgusting.
Yeah. So with... Because I guess for me, it's not surprising that Joe Burrow got injured.
No, it's not surprising.
And him getting injured and the Bengals being terrible because he's injured doesn't surprise me. I think... Look, we've been talking about it. You and I personally have talked about it for the last couple of years, whether we've been on a podcast or not. I don't think the Ravens are as good as they're. I think they've been frauds for a long time. And look, I'm actually going to we'll step back. I'm going to say something nice about Lamar Jackson as a quarterback. I think Lamar Jackson has been good enough to elevate that team to a spot that they never should have been in for the last couple of years. Since they lost Mike McDonald, thank the Lord that they lost him and that he's where he is right now. Since they lost him, that defense has been not great. I think a lot of people still have the thought in their head that the Ravens defense is okay. Like, especially going into the season, people are like, oh, well, of course the Ravens are going to have a good defense. And they just really haven't. And then you get an injured Lamar. So even if you think Lamar Jackson is the best quarterback in that division, which a healthy Joe Burrow is better than Lamar Jackson, I still would think. When you get an injured Lamar Jackson and 75% now that he's back, even, I think, probably Lamar Jackson, like something is still clearly bothering him. I don't think it's surprising that they're bad either. I think it's maybe it's a little bit surprising that Cleveland hasn't won a couple more games, given how good their defense is. I think this is it's
They
interesting.
don't have a quarterback.
I mean, yeah, this is a team. What's interesting is if you took this division and took like the best player, like if you made an all-star division team out of just the division, it would be a good football team. But you need everybody from all four of those teams to make a good football team.
Let me ask you this though: who's the quarterback on that team?
That's a good question.
Is it Aaron Rodgers?
I mean, he's not fancy, but he's at this point in his career. But he's, I guess, been solid enough. Maybe. I mean, obviously, I think if Joe Burrow was healthy, he'd give it to Joe Burrow. But
this is, I don't know about statistically, but this is probably his best year not in a Packer uniform.
Yeah, you asked. I mean, look, the answer to that question is given strictly on this year, based off what we've seen between not missing games and not.
He's gotten injured he has not missed games.
Yeah, so you throw all that together, and ultimately, I think you'd have to say, yeah, he's been the best quarterback for the entire season in the division. Which I think if you had said that at the beginning of the year, so maybe that is maybe you're right. Maybe that's the super surprising part. I think I struggle a little bit. I thought when we talked about this a little bit, in like, hey, maybe that's the way we address the NFL. I thought my most surprising thing was going to be that the Kansas City Chiefs are terrible.
I'm not surprised by that.
I'm kind of not surprised either because
I'm not surprised by that.
They were trending that way last year. And you think about how many close games they won last year. And yeah, like a good team wins close games, but they got worse this offseason. Obviously, you got an aging Travis Kelce who has no real need to be playing football. And
and what's funny is you see the physical restrictions now. I've seen several mental mistakes from Travis Kelce, who has caused several of these interceptions, like his own fault.
Yeah.
Just not catching passes.
And I'm not going to be somebody who sits here and says, like, oh, he's got to be distracted because he's dating. Like, that's not the issue. I think
he's now the richest man in the world.
Right. I think now he's just
that's a distraction.
I think he's just at a point where he's like, I think
he's good.
He's seeing the writing on the wall. I think he kind of feels like maybe he doesn't have to try as hard. Because the team's not good. And it feels a lot, that team feels a lot like Patrick Mahomes, and it seems like he has to do everything. Honestly, in a lot of ways, it reminds me of the end of the Russell Wilson era in Seattle, in that it felt like, I think we talked about this a few times when Russell was at the end of his time with Seattle. Obviously, we didn't know it then, but I think it was very much you looked at that offense, you looked at what the defense was doing, and it felt like Russell Wilson had to play a perfect game every single game in order for and by perfect, I'm talking like a 300-plus yard game, no interceptions, 4 touchdowns, probably rushes. I mean, look at it right now, Patrick Mahomes is the second leading rusher on that team. What's his name? Kareem Hunt just passed him. That ought to tell you, how bad that offense is. Like, the weapons just don't exist around him right now. And so I think on the outside looking in, a lot of people would go, yeah, that's a surprise. I don't think I'm very surprised by it at all.
Well, I can tell you why it's not a surprise. You look at all of the holes that they've had, and they've had for a while, they can't really fill those because they're overpaying all of their stars.
Yeah.
Just like you mentioned, Russell Wilson era after they won their Super Bowls. But it happens once every rookie window for a quarterback ends. Once you pay them and then you pay all these other superstars, then once you're just tight on money, you have to go cheap on certain positions. That means you have to sign the 1-year older veteran, or you're having to really nail the draft. And when you don't nail the draft at those positions of need, and then you don't have them be at the money to go and spend on these high dollar positions like offensive line, like wide receiver, they still don't have a true alpha number 1 receiver. They thought they had that in Rashee Rice, but he finally got that suspension this year. They haven't no one's still been able to find a rhythm being the true number one, and then most years Kelsey can be the number one.
And
He's
not
slow.
that- yeah.
He's old. He can't move. So when you don't really have the solution you really yet at left tackle, and then you don't really have a true number one receiver, your running back, which you thought you had solidified, that was a 7th round pick, all of a sudden has the yips.
Yeah.
So they don't have a run game either. It is not a surprising to the bad.
Yeah, so that was going to be my surprise, and that's the more I thought, I was like, no, I'm not surprised by that at all. I think they're trending about the way I kind of expected them to this year. So I'm actually going to be semi-positive on my surprise. I think the real surprise this year is the Chicago Bears.
Is that a surprise though?
Well, I mean, yeah, because I don't think we knew how Ben Johnson was going to be as a head coach. You know, sure. Looking at it, you think, okay, Ben Johnson, head coach. I think Ben Johnson is the reason that Detroit turned their offense around and were so good for a while. And I think you see on the flip side of that, they've struggled a bit this year offensively. Not a ton. I mean, they've dealt with some injuries, and struggle is, again, a very relative term in that regard. But I think we've seen that offense struggle a little bit more than they have the last couple of years. And so that, to me, of course, in the hindsight of that, is like, oh, well, yeah, clearly Ben Johnson was the reason that they were as good as they are. So, like, it makes sense now that they're good. You go, okay, yeah, Ben Johnson, good coach. I think going into the year, I thought this is also still the Chicago Bears. And this is not necessarily the best roster in the league, and yet somehow they're winning games, and somehow they're looking good for the most part. And does that mean I think they're going to win? Oh, Washington coach is about to get the old Gatorade.
It actually looks like the most surprised Gatorade bath, because most coaches, they can see in the corner of their eye. He was so hyper focused.
Yeah, and you know,
he legit had no idea.
I guess when you're up 38-10, you start thinking, you're like, maybe they're not going to do it because we're up 38-10, and it's the bucked up LA Bowl. Is that really worth?
Does Jed Fish not give you like northern version of Mike Gundy?
A little bit.
He
kind of looks like him.
He looks like him, but I've heard him speak before. He gives off Gundy energy.
I can see that. Yeah. So for me, yeah, I think you look at. Obviously Caleb Williams has actually played pretty well this year. I think there's still some question marks with him, and he's still young, and he's plenty of question marks with him still. His completion percentage is better, but a little bit low still. I still think he makes some questionable decisions here and there, and you wonder if some things with him at quarterback. But look, they're running the ball well.
Yep.
Defense is playing pretty good, and they're sitting in a really good spot.
Shout out Kyle Monunga.
Yeah, yeah.
Another 7th round running back from Rutgers.
Yeah,
how about that?
Rutgers
running back you
apparently, and it's really interesting. Talking about Caleb Williams, he's actually done a really good job spreading the ball around. I mean, obviously Odunze is the leading wide receiver, but DJ Moore's there. Loveland's hanging up there. Like, they're all really close.
Finally starting to catch on.
Luther Burden's playing pretty good. So, like, even Zacchaeus is pretty good. Like, Komet's got 200-plus yards, almost 300 yards receiving. Like, you've got several guys there. So, clearly he's spreading the ball around. And look, a lot of that's going to be play design. A lot of that is Ben Johnson coaching. I'm not trying to take too much away from Caleb Williams there. Obviously, I just said he's playing a lot better than he had been. But I think that's it's really a team to keep an eye out on, because going into this year, I think it was very much a make or break year for Caleb Williams. I know he's a young quarterback, but at the beginning of the year, I think if you had said he doesn't make it through the year playing quarterback, I think that would have been less surprising than the Bears being. Let's see what I'm trying to think of what they are actually right now.
9-4.
Well, they're the 7th seed, but like that's what I was trying to think of the actual seed they are in the playoffs, because they are the 7th seed technically.
Yeah. But
the NFC, as we're about to talk about, when we talk full on playoffs, everybody's kind of right there together. But let's go back to the AFC. Unless you have anything else that is kind of surprising with you the NFL season, other than just everybody seeming like everybody is injured. Are we burying the lead here? Is the surprise of the season of the NFL the fact that as we sit here on a Saturday night before the Seattle Seahawks take on the Indianapolis Colts, so we've got a pod versus pod battle about to take place tomorrow afternoon. Is the surprise of the football season, if you, Patrick, if we had sat and done a podcast before the beginning of the season and said, what do you think is going to happen this season? If you can just think of the most off-the-wall thing that could happen in a football season this year, would Phillip Rivers playing an NFL snap as a 44-year-old grandfather, would that have been on your list of things to have happened? Would you have put more money on Phillip Rivers playing a down at quarterback or the Bears making the playoffs this year?
I think I'm pulling a New Girl reference. I think if I would have put money on Phillip Rivers starting a game for us, I could pull a Winston and I could buy a city at this point. I could buy the city of Dallas.
I would love to see if you could even have gotten odds on.
Like, brother,
on that.
get away from the gate. We're not putting this. You're not making this bet, brother.
You're just
It's
giving.
not happening.
You know what? Though, I bet somebody would think,
Please
like,
leave.
yeah, you're just giving us money.
Please leave the casino.
You'll be like, sir, we're gonna have to call some services because
We're gonna call
something is wrong. No. So yeah. So maybe that is the surprise of the season so far, is that Phillip Rivers.
You know what? There's actually been several surprises to this season for me.
Well,
And then guess what? None of them are any good.
it's been a rough season.
There's been one that Daniel Jones could actually lead a second team potentially to the playoffs had he not gotten hurt twice. But I mean,
yeah, I think
whoever would have thought that we'd spend 2 first-round picks on Sauce Gardner and then immediately get injured? Who would have thought that one of our big free agent signings on defense would go on IR twice for concussions, that are one of our arguably best defensive players in DeForest Buckner on IR for his neck, that freaking Anthony Richardson would get hurt from a stretch band, pop his eye.
That's the most Michael Scott
And
injury.
break an orbital bone.
Yeah, obviously you don't want to wish injuries on somebody, but that is just an interesting. That maybe is like a microcosm of what the season has been for you as an Indianapolis Colts fan. Kind of a wild trail of.
I thought I could finally experience joy when it comes to football, and then football said, "No." Who do you to experience happiness in the sport ever?
Yeah, I mean, not to mention being a Razorback fan, that doesn't play out well for you at all.
No.
But hey, it could be worse. You could be our good friend Roger, who we like to always give a good shout out on the pod to, that you could be a Browns fan.
You could be a Jets fan.
You could be a Jets fan and have to watch. Have to.
You could be a Raiders fan and think Tom Brady's going to save you.
Listen,
I think that's
no, that is not surprising at all.
I'm not saying it's surprising. I think that is the most miserable.
Yeah, that's a bad situation.
Franchise.
That's a bad franchise, and I think you and I talked about it. Obviously, texting.
But you can also see which owners are 100% just flat out morons.
Look, the first problem was bringing in Pete Carroll. I think Pete Carroll
the first problem was bringing in Tom Brady.
No, I think that's less of a problem than bringing in Pete Carroll as their head coach, because this was going to happen. Pete Carroll as a football coach.
Do you think no one else was interested? Like, legit. Do you think they asked a ton of people, and people were just like, I just wanted to use you as an interview experience?
I don't know.
And then they just had to go find anyone who would actually want to coach?
That's maybe a fair.
Because I honestly feel like there's certain jobs that no one really wants. Does anyone really want the Cleveland job? Does anyone really want the Tennessee job? Does anyone really want to coach Oakland or the Raiders right now?
Man, well,
I think there's just the Jets. Like, I love Aaron Flynn, but like, who else is really going to go coach the Jets?
That's a fair question. I think out of those four, I think the one you'd be most likely to want to coach, is probably Tennessee. And I say that because I think Cam Ward has shown enough flashes of being an okay quarterback that you might have something that you can build there. And I think the right coach could do some things with that. Man, those other three, New York, that's not a good situation. Obviously, they have quarterback issues. They've got a lot of issues there. Oakland set themselves, or Oakland, Vegas.
You want to know really what, if you think of those 4 teams that I mentioned, no one thinks about it, but all 4 of those have ownership that refuse to let football people do football people.
Yeah,
things.
it's a good lesson.
All 4 of them.
It is a good lesson. Oh, it's going to be insanely cold tomorrow. The news is on, and I'm not looking forward to 20 degrees for wind chill tomorrow morning.
You mean in December?
Lovely. I
mean,
I guess
Santa Claus is literally coming to town. You can't handle a little cold.
We should freeze it up a little bit for him. I'll just have to make sure to grab a jacket. You're right. I think it makes a lot of sense. Well, you look maybe the perfect example of that is Seattle versus, I keep wanting to say Oakland, Las Vegas. Because that's a team, you look at Seattle, had Pete Carroll, had John Schneider, and, there was kind of the argument of, okay, who's actually in control there? Pete Carroll leaves, and all of a sudden, Seattle solves it. And I think you look at that, clearly and not that Pete Carroll's not a football guy. Obviously, Pete Carroll is a football guy.
Yeah.
But I think it's fair at this point in time to be like, okay, maybe Pete Carroll is a little less of a football noseball guy at this point and is more of a vibes guy. And that was always my thing at the end.
He is 100% vibes.
Yeah, and that's just not, that doesn't, look, I always thought it had its issues in college or in professional football anyways. You look at the Seahawks runs, and you could always kind of tell that players kind of seemed like they got tired of being there after 3 or 4 years. And it makes sense that, you get a guy who's really good at college coaching and runs through the same stuff over and over again from a vibes perspective, and you probably get a little bit tired of it. But man, you look in Oakland, as soon as they brought in Pete Carroll and then brought in Geno Smith, and then and then their first move, I called it as soon as he got hired. I said he's going to draft Ashton Jeanty first in the first round. And it doesn't matter where they pick; they're going to pick him in the first round, and he will trade up to get Ashton Jeanty if he has to. And I like Ashton Jeanty as a player, but Ashton Jeanty has been hit. I think it's 2 guys who have been hit behind line scrimmage more than 50 times. And it's Saquon Barkley, which is a bit of a surprise, and Ashton Jeanty, which is in no way a surprise because that Raiders offensive line was.
But they were also
terrible.
moving people around that shouldn't have ever been moved around. Like Jackson Powers-Johnson was playing great at center, and then in the summer, you immediately hear there's no way they're looking at him at center. They want him at guard. When he loves playing center and is great at it, and like the second half of last year, you saw that he is an NFL center. Like he's a starting NFL center in the league. And then I think it's a Chip Kelly problem. Because Chip Kelly was one who was like, hey, Jeanty, you got to have this stance. Do not use your
stand-up stance.
Yeah, don't use your stand-up stance. Jackson Powers-Johnson, you're moving back to guard. I don't care. You're playing guard.
Yeah,
you're ruining good things that work for no reason, right? Just because you think you're top dog.
I think that absolutely seems to me like it's kind of.
I think that is the epitome of Chip Kelly. He is a good coach, but his ego gets in the way, like literally so much that it gets him fired at several positions.
Yeah, I think it's good. A good. Yeah, because you look at everywhere he's kind of been when he ultimately gets in. I mean, outside of Oregon, because he left Oregon to go places.
That's when the train derailed. Was once he left Oregon.
But like you can get away with that when you're a good coach, when you're a decent coach.
And he's probably like that at Oregon, but like you're saying, they were winning, so people were past.
You win and you get the
kind of like how we overlook Kelly being a terrible person.
Well, yeah, and a terrible football coach.
But when he's winning, people can look past it. But when they're losing, they're like, dude, this guy actually sucks.
Yeah, and you know, to get back to that question, which of those franchises, if I were a coach, where would I want to go? I think, surprisingly, Tennessee, I think, would be one. I think Cleveland might be two. And the only reason I say that is because if you could solve, and granted, it obviously has been a problem for a long, long time.
Is it the ego part of like, if I can solve Cleveland, I can legit run this place? Like, I can run this league.
No, I mean, yeah, because look at that. That's a good That's a really good defense. And if you could solve the offense and make the offense mediocre, you can win a lot of football games with that team. Like, as it is right now, if you, even if you just think about, like, I'm trying to think of like a bare minimum, like, average quarterback. If you had Baker back, I mean, if you, let's use somebody who was available. If you had Sam Darnold as your quarterback in Cleveland, how many more games do you think they would win than the 3 they have right now?
4? Like
4 more games?
Yeah.
So they'd be 7 and whatever that would be. What, 7 and 8, 7 and 6? We're on week 15. Let's say 7 and 7.
Yeah.
Well, let's just go there. So there'd be 7 and 7. Worst case, like I think that, to me, that is worst case. They would be 7 and 7. If you get Sam Darnold at quarterback and maybe a weapon or two more on offense, now you're a playoff team. That's a weak division. All you really are missing with, not all, but and I'm being maybe downplaying.
I mean,
Sam
in this
Darnold
division, it's literally first place because the Steelers right now are 7 and 6.
Right. And so I think
that gets you legit in the playoffs, probably as a 4 seed.
Right. And so I think that, to me, seems like that. Like, obviously, you think you go to the Jets. If you go to the Jets, you have, obviously Buffalo. You have New York in your division. You've got a lot of problems there as well. You're not just a quarterback away. You go to Tennessee. That's a tough-ish division. I mean, no, that's a tough division because you got the Houston Texans, who have maybe the best defense in all of football. I still think it's Seattle, but 1-2, like, it's flip a coin there. They're both very, 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 very good defenses. You got a young defense because Will Anderson's leading it. Like, and not that they're going to get rid of C.J. Stroud's good enough, I think. You got Jacksonville, obviously, is good. And I think Indy's problem, obviously, is not that they're a bad football team. It's that they're, bitten in the booty.
It's quarterback away.
You're LSU. You're a Joe Burrow away from the championship.
It's funny because we keep making bad decisions when choosing quarterbacks ever since Andrew Luck retired. And I'm sure they finally thought that they may have put it past us, and Chris Ballard may have finally just accidentally found a decent quarterback, and then the injury happened.
Yeah.
And so now he's put under the microscope, I think, again, because every decision he's made under center has just been awful.
Yeah.
And he's going to have to make another decision another year in a row.
Well, you and I have talked about it. I think the move for them is to, for sure, re-sign Danny Jones to 1 year. Get Indianapolis Jones back and give him a chance, because their early reports right now are that he's going to be back ready for camp. I think you maybe draft a young quarterback if there's one that you like. This isn't the best class for quarterbacks.
This year, no.
And we don't know who's coming out still, obviously. So that could be an issue. But and we don't know necessarily who's going to be available.
I told it to you yesterday, but for those who watched the NFL Stock Exchange on their live show the other day, someone mentioned Colts being screwed, and then like, what if we just did a swap and gave them their picks back, or
give back sauce?
Have them give our picks back.
Yeah,
What if we said, please, can we have them back?
Please,
we will return sauce. He's not damaged goods.
Yeah, no, I think the move for them, because I think what's going to be hard for Indy, and we'll move on to college football after this. I think what's going to be hard for Indy is to not. Well, we got to actually talk playoffs a little bit, and then we'll move on. So we'll be real fast. I think Indy's thing this offseason is going to have to be don't panic, because I think.
Well, you got a lot of key free agents that you're going to have to make decisions on, because you've got Pierce, who's is a free agent. We've got our Braden Smith, I believe, is a free agent. I mean, there's one or two key pieces on the defense, I know for sure. Like, there are several big contracts that we have to make decisions on after we had two big contracts go away because they both ironically signed in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And that's not working out. So, I mean, we've got to make a lot of big decisions. One, at quarterback, yet again. But whether we're going to pay up and keep some of these key pieces that have made giant contributions this year, or if we let them walk and try to hit the draft again.
Yeah, I think at least for y'all, the good option is that you have a chance, because I don't think anybody's going to be fighting you to get Danny Jones coming off an Achilles. So I think you roll that.
Coming off an Achilles? No. If he was just riding out this 1-year contract, even if we made the playoffs, missed the playoffs, like, if he hadn't got injured, I think there'd be competition for sure. Now, after this, we still need, like, we don't have a choice, I don't think, but we're probably going to be able to just get him on whatever we want.
Yeah, which I think is good for y'all. I think you roll that, and you maybe see between Riley Leonard and Anthony Richardson, maybe if either one of them progresses enough in the offseason that you think that might be a long-term solution. I mean, look, as much as we've not really liked what we've seen from Anthony Richardson, and obviously the orbital bone injury this year is not great for him. Like, he is still super young, and so you can still maybe turn that into a thing. I think just don't panic. It's like, make the smart, easy decisions. Talk to those free agents and be like, hey, look, like, obviously last year was a bit of a cluster, and some things went, like, it was just unlucky. We solved that. We brought, like, if we just stay what we were a playoff team. And honestly, up until the Danny Jones, the first injury, when he breaks his leg, like, maybe the top team in the NFL. Like, you were in that discussion of, like, New England Patriots, like, of this season, New England Patriots, Indianapolis Colts. Both a little bit of a surprise, but you were there.
At one point, we were the 1 seed.
Yeah. And so I think, like, you go and you say, hey, like, we're that team if we just are smart about it and don't try to take any big swings. I think maybe that's the thing, is, like, don't panic until, like, as hard as that is to say, like, we need to see what we have next year with what we have, with what we can bring back. I think that's maybe the move there. So look, real quick, before we talk college football, because that's us and we'll go on for a hot minute too. Let's start the AFC. And man, maybe this is also the surprise that if you look at the 1 through 4 seeds, obviously division leaders, but you look at that, you got Denver at 11-2, New England at 11-2.
Denver's a fraud, by the way.
You think Denver's a fraud?
I think Denver's a fraud. Now, granted, they should...
Fraud or team of destiny?
Fraud. They should be 12-1. We got handed that victory.
Wait, so they're a fraud, but they should be 12-1 instead of 11-2? So how are they a fraud?
Have you seen the games they've been playing?
I mean, yes, look.
They don't look good in really any of them.
But here's the thing. They've got Tim Tebow energy. That entire team is Tim Tebow energy.
Bo Nix is not that great a quarterback.
No, he's not. But he's got Tim Tebow energy.
You mentioned a boring quarterback? He is.
No, I don't think he's boring, because you don't know what's going to happen. He's kind of chaos personified, and that he's not that great. And look, I have been on the anti-Bo Nix train since...
I was surprised last year. I didn't expect from for one, be 11-2, but him... I think he's degressed, and not like a little bit, like a lot. I don't know if that's changing what they are just asking him to do, but he doesn't really do much.
I think it's probably a mix of he was okay last year, and they gave him too much. And I thought we can lean on Bo Nix a little bit more.
Dude, you know how many one-score games that they've won?
Yeah, they're the Chiefs. They're last year's Chiefs.
But, like, they're not even, like, arguably getting handed these games. They're just falling ass backwards in the wins they don't deserve.
But the thing of that is like that sometimes is the good thing for a team. Like sometimes that's the mark of a good team. An okay team. I don't think you're necessarily wrong, but like that's where I kind of have like it's tongue in cheek a little bit. But the team of destiny thing is kind of like some teams just win those games, and sometimes those are the teams that end up doing really really good. Because you need that kind of good luck to win a game.
They have a gauntlet these last 4. They play in Green Bay this week.
Rough.
They play Jacksonville at home.
Rough.
They play the Chiefs in Kansas City.
And Kansas City.
On Christmas.
Which could be if Kansas City is hot enough to...
Which they've got to win out. So if they're winning out at that point, that's a ginormous game.
If they're winning out, that's a problem.
And then the Chargers... to end the year at home, but
which will be for the division probably. Like you
exactly.
think, yeah. So that's tough. So they're interesting because we'll see. New England, I think, is kind of like they feel like they're pretty solidly. I'm not going to say completely like I feel like their spot is clinched. Like they're not going to.
Yeah, they're good.
They're not necessarily going to win the division. We'll see what happens with Buffalo, but
I think they do.
I think they probably do because I feel like Buffalo's just kind of. Not good enough. Like we'll get to that. What do you think of Jacksonville? Because Jacksonville kind of feels like that team that I feel like should be a fraud, but somehow they're still winning enough games. And I guess you could make the argument that maybe the division, like I know I just said it's a tough division, but like
it's the division.
Yeah,
like Houston, their offense. Is media. It's the team that if you just become mediocre on one side.
Yeah.
This is it. Houston is not fantastic on offense. They're not bad though. They're not very flashy. CJ Stroud is not very consistently good.
Yeah.
Like he's digressed as the years have gone on. Not like tremendously. I'm not saying he's bad now, but like his rookie year, remember,
he's consistently inconsistent.
Very good.
Yeah.
He's consistently inconsistent. But their defense is just top notch.
Yeah.
One of the best in the league. So, because their run game is improved, still gross. They really don't have like a solidified number 2 option at the receiver. They drafted several this past year to try and get that, but a lot of those have not lived up to expectations. So they don't really have a true receiver that is a number 2. Their offensive line has gotten a little bit better, but it was awful last year. So you could only go up from there.
Yeah, and then you look around and it's like, man, is at the 4 spot, is Pittsburgh going to make the? Is Pittsburgh going to win that division? Like you look, they got Miami left, and they've got Baltimore. They've got Miami, Baltimore, and Cleveland all still left. They play Detroit in the middle of that at Detroit. They're playing Miami in Pittsburgh this week. You got at Detroit, Cleveland. It's not a gimme. It's not a gimme.
Miami now is not a gimme like it was like 2 months ago. Like we thought Miami was just one of the worst teams in the league, and then they made a change, fired the GM who was awful.
Yeah,
and it's the fire. You don't see them a lot, but a fired GM bump almost in a way.
But would you rather?
Because now you've got the coaching staff knowing that if we drop the ball one more time, we could be fired too.
So, but do you think that is a tougher schedule, or is at Cincinnati versus New England, at Green Bay, at Pittsburgh a tougher schedule?
Who's that?
That's Baltimore's.
Ooh. With a not 100%.
With not 100% Lamar Jackson. You do have to face...
Packers.
You get the Bengals defense, so you kind of get a bye week. Which they've gotten a little bit better towards the end of the season, maybe. But I think... Man, you look at that. I think the Steelers are going to kind of backdoor their way into the playoffs here. And I wouldn't be surprised. If you look at that, then I think Baltimore's out. And if Baltimore's out, I think that means Harbaugh gets fired. I think then maybe they start questioning some things about Lamar long term. I think this could be the end of this Baltimore team that we've kind of had for the last. You can't call it a dynasty, obviously, but I think this is where you have to look at it if you're the front office of Baltimore and go, we don't have it here. Yeah. Like, your window's closed. If you don't make the playoffs this year and make a run, your window's closed with this team because your defense has gotten worse. You've lost your best defensive coordinator. Your offense hasn't been good for a couple of years. Lamar hasn't been able to win in the playoffs. And so you start going like, okay, how do we rebuild this team? Is that we rebuild it around Lamar? Well, Lamar, I think, as he continues to get older, and this is, I know this is one of those things that people always want to rail against, be like, oh, this is a tired argument. But Lamar is kind of running, no pun intended there, but he's kind of got a similar career trajectory to Cam Newton in the sense of now that he's kind of started getting beat up and kind of started getting injured, he's not the athlete that he was when he was a rookie, when he was in his first couple years, when they were really, really good there for a while. And the longer that goes on, I think the worse he's going to get from an athleticism standpoint. And I don't think, and this has always been my thing about Lamar, is I don't think he's good enough at the passing side of the game. He's not bad, and I've always tried to hold back on that he's not bad. But I don't look at Lamar Jackson knowing he does, and this is where the struggle comes in, is I think people want to look at it, is he a good passer? He's a fine passer when there is also the threat of Lamar Jackson being the ridiculous athlete and being able to escape you, and you have to play in and play defense against that. Similar to some of these other quarterbacks that we've seen kind of age out. When you start losing that, and you're Cam Newton and you now can't be as physical. When you're Cam Newton and you're now not outrunning people the way you used to be able to. If you haven't developed the passing game that coincides with that, you're not going to be as good. And when you're not as good at that, and then teams can go, well, now we don't have to worry about the run as much. We can just play the pass. And when we just play the pass, he's not as good a quarterback. They don't have a lot of weapons around him, really. I mean, you got Derrick Henry, but that's an aging running back that's only going to age more. You've got really nothing that I'm scared of from a receiver standpoint. Mark Andrews, I've had him on fantasy football teams for the last 18 years, I think, and he just consistently inconsistent.
Well, he just got an extension.
So
he just got paid.
Right. So you look at that team, and there's just not a lot you can do with it. And so I think this is, if they don't make especially if they don't make the playoffs, I think this is the point where you got to start going, we got to tear this team apart and start over.
What I don't understand is going into the season, everyone, even before week 1, was like, Mark Andrews could easily be traded just because we saw what happened in the playoffs last year and that controversy with Mark Andrews. A lot of people didn't think he would be in camp with them this summer. And then before the season started, they're like, he could still be traded. Likely could still end up being number 1. And sure enough, they went through the season. We didn't really see prime Mark Andrews, and we're not going to. But then within the last week, dude, this coach on TV is just going.
Well, yeah, because they knocked off South Lake Carroll. DeSoto beat South Lake Carroll, and that's a massive upset in Texas high school football. If you don't know who South Lake Carroll, home of Quinn Ewers. I think, didn't Quinn Ewers go to South Lake?
Yes.
Yeah, he was a South Lake guy.
Yes.
But South Lake's
I think he just knows, my life is going to change.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm him.
I would actually kind of love to go back and listen to that because that looks like I'm about to get fired up. But, yeah, I think you really got to look at that team and kind of tear it down. So Pittsburgh probably wins that. You go down the line. Looking at what is the wild card right now, you've got the Chargers who look like they might actually be okay. In spite of the fact that
we saw, the first month is not what we're seeing right now, though, and I don't know if they're going to get back to that.
But I think they're okay enough to make the playoffs. You look at what else is below them, and, I don't think KC is going to make it. I think
also, they're a team that keeps getting injuries, devastating injuries in the offensive line, and I'm sick of it because I want to see a 100% or as close to 100% through the full season because we're getting robbed, essentially.
Of Justin Herbert.
We're getting robbed of Herbert. We're getting robbed of this, what could be a juggernaut offense.
When's his contract up?
Oh, he signed a big one, 2 years ago?
Because I almost want to say, like, he's almost a guy who I almost wouldn't be surprised if he left, because they just have not been able to solve that offensive line issue. Buffalo's sitting there at 9-4 in the 6th spot. I think they're probably going to have to go the wild card route, because I don't think they're going to catch New England.
Nope.
That's a team that, man, they were. Speaking of another team that in the offseason this year going around is really going to have to figure out, they have not been able to do the right things on offense to make that offense good outside of Josh Allen.
They're like the only thing that's not the same, and they have not a fantastic offensive line, but what they've had is what they've had. Like, they've not been making like major changes. It's kind of like Detroit, where like it's a good offensive line, like, and they just want to keep who they have in place. But still, where are their weapons at wide receiver? They don't really have any.
Right.
And that's killed them. They do not have a number one anymore. Like, everyone just assumes that Shakir's going to be that, but no.
Yeah.
There's plenty of times where he's not showing up. Keon Coleman, who was supposed to be that, cannot get out of his own way. And so they're still looking for a true alpha. And, like, the tight ends, you randomly don't know who's going to be like.
They're the worst to have on fantasy football.
Oh,
as well. And then you look, I think Houston probably makes it in that last spot, because I think their defense is just good enough that they'll keep them going. So that is your AFC. I think, unfortunately for you, probably Indy is out.
I don't want them to make it.
Yeah.
I don't want to make it. There's no point.
You start looking at
The only thing that sucks is we can't tank. What are we tanking for? The Jets to pick higher?
right. Well, and you can't take anyways, because there's already 4 teams eliminated, and you're not going to be worse than them, obviously. So at this point, you're kind of stuck there. But real quick, let's run through the NFC, which is kind of not a cluster because of a bad thing. There's just a lot of good football teams. We got the Rams at the 1 spot, Green Bay at 2, Phillies somehow hanging on there at 3. Ironic that there's 2 divisions that are kind of just not great, and like and Carolina's in the other one.
That is
the other ones.
That is a surprising thing right there. Are you kidding me? How is that not surprising?
Because I think we've seen enough flashes from them last year. I think that they're not.
Tampa still existing.
Bad, but Tampa's hurt. Look, Baker. You can't watch Baker play football this year and tell me he's not been hurt at least the last 6 weeks. Like it
was
seemed,
going into the season, it's like, well, Baker's been hurt.
Right, but I think like once you. Sure, if you go at the beginning, if you ask me at the beginning of the season, do you think Carolina wins that division? Do you think Tampa Bay does? I say Tampa Bay running away. But kind of in the less surprised version, once you tell me Baker's probably playing hurt, that Tampa offense has been kind of not injury prone, but they've been beat up a little bit.
Sucks.
Defense is not great. Like, you start throwing that around, it's like, okay, well, like, Carolina is okay enough. I feel like Carolina is a very mediocre team, and I thought they were going to be mediocre, and they're still mediocre. Tampa is also not playing well and has been mediocre most of the season. And so Tampa's been the team that I've struggled with most. If you go back and look at our pick'em that we do with our good buddy Roger and our good buddy Alec, if you go back and look at that, I guarantee you where most of my losses, if you added up all my losses and gave them to a team, Tampa would be the one that is the leading cause of me getting losses. Because I constantly think, they'll win this game, and then they lose it. Tampa being bad is more of a surprise to me than Carolina being mediocre in the playoff line. Seattle's sitting at the 5 spot, but they are also 10-3. LA just holds the tiebreaker right now. San Francisco in the 6th spot at 9-4, and then Chicago sitting in there at the 7th spot at 9-4. Obviously, they still got at least one game against Detroit, right? And they've got to play the Packers too, I think, still. So that could change a little bit. They've got a tough run out after this week. They get Cleveland this week, but then it's Green Bay, San Francisco, Detroit. So that's a pretty rough run out. So we'll see there whether they get that last spot. I'm probably going to say that the last spot ends up going to Detroit. I think Detroit is the better team overall, but it's not going to surprise me either way that way. So last thing, and then we'll go quickly to college football because I will have to go to bed at some point in time tonight. out of the team, based off where we are right now, what do you think your Super Bowl matchup is? Who do you think wins the Super Bowl?
AFC, honestly, I think it's going to be New England.
Okay.
I think New England's going to make it. I don't, based off of what I'm looking at, I don't think Kansas City's just going to go on this magical run. I don't think Buffalo is that strong on offense in order to keep up with anyone. I think New England is going to be in the Super Bowl.
Okay.
NFC, I'm probably going to say the Rams. They look just like the most complete team. Now, Seattle's going to give them run for their money. I don't think San Francisco is going to be able to keep going. So, I mean, even with an aging quarterback in this league where we just keep talking about old quarterbacks, Matthew Stafford could be the MVP of this league with as old as he is and in a tough NFC where, like, you still got 11 teams in the hunt. I mean, now, if you ask me to pick out of those two winning, I'd probably give the edge to the Rams and say the Rams with Stafford. He gets his second ring just because he's played in that game before. That team has been in that position before where this is only Drake May, his second year.
Yeah.
And you're asking him to be able to take on and win the Super Bowl like that. Let's say he can't, but I'm going to give the nod to the vet there.
So,
and say the Rams.
Okay. I think that's a fair point. I think, man, I think for me, because I where it gets tough is I think New England's going to have to play Buffalo 3 times this year.
I mean, that is rough.
And while I think they're probably the better team, Josh Allen being the wild card that he is in terms of how good he is could be the differing factor there. So I struggle with New England versus Buffalo. I'm not sure. And if we're being fair, I don't watch enough Buffalo versus New England. I haven't watched either of those teams play enough to really know which one I feel like is better. I think
New England.
I think New England is the more complete football team. Do I think they're better at no, I think you're right. I think they're the better football team. I'll say it. They obviously don't have the best quarterback. Drake May is playing very well. He's not a member of the 300 club yet. Still hasn't thrown for 300 yards passing, which is not a bar for a quarterback that really matters when they're winning football games. But Josh Allen, I mean, I don't think anybody's going to argue the fact that Josh Allen is the better quarterback still, for sure. But the surrounding cast is not as good from a complete standpoint. So I think New England makes a lot of sense. We'll have to see. Maybe they're the best team. I think they're the most complete team in the AFC. Other side, I think NFC's wide open.
Oh, yeah.
However, I think it comes down to Seattle versus LA. And the thing, we'll obviously find out. They play one more time this season. But, yes, they have the tiebreaker on Seattle. But that was also a game where Sam Darnold threw 4 interceptions. And it was a one-score game. So,
yeah, I mean,
if
it's hard to win those.
If Sam Darnold doesn't throw 4 interceptions, I think Seattle's got the better defense for sure. Seattle gave Matt Stafford plenty of problems in that game for sure. If Sam Darnold plays mediocre football, I think Seattle's the better football team. Now, the big question there is Sam Darnold going to throw 2 picks in a game? Is he going to throw 3 picks in a game against the Rams? Is he going to throw 4 picks in a game against the Rams? We've seen him do it once. He could absolutely do it again. So, I can't give the nod to the Rams, especially to get to the Super Bowl. And again, they're going to have to play Seattle 3 times. That's a tough ask for anybody. So even if they win in the last, I think it's the last game of the regular season. No, because it's next week. because it's the Thursday night game. They play them on Thursday night. I think.
Side note: no division game should be on Thursday.
I'm not going to argue that. Neither here nor there.
You're making this the division being decided on
a Thursday night,
a short week.
It's a tough ask. So like, it's kind of one of those like. I will say similarly to what I said the first time they played. As long as Seattle doesn't get blown out, like I don't think, as long as neither one of the teams get blown out, I don't think that result really matters in the grand scheme of things. Both of those teams are going to make the playoffs. Both of those teams, I think, are the best. The Packers maybe are the wild card in that they're sneaky good, but I still don't trust Jordan Love. I believe by the time the playoffs come around, Toyotathon is over with, so he's not a concern. Which, by the way, that stat, that whole thing is absolutely. I don't know what it is, and he's leading into it. I don't know. I forget what it was, but he did an interview the other day. It might have been Pat McAfee's show, and he was wearing a Toyotathon shirt. So like, he knows the joke and gets it as well. So that's really funny. I'm going to give the nod to Seattle in the playoffs in a big game. I'm going to give the nod to Seattle, and I'm going to say it's Seattle, New England again, and Seattle gets their revenge for the run that should have been, or the pass that should have been a run, but actually should have been a pass that just was a good play by New England. So there you have that. That is NFL. We managed to take a lot longer than we planned on for that. That is absolutely par for the course for what we've done in our entire podcasting career. So let's go now, Patrick, to college football so that we can get to bed. And of course, what we have to talk about, do you want to start playoff first, or do you want to go coaches? Real fast.
Oh, we got to talk coaches.
Let's go coaches first, and then we'll go playoff to finish it off. And how the playoff should be fixed. It's not how it's going to be fixed, but how you actually fix the playoff. So coaching searches. Obviously, Michigan's got a gigantic problem. Let me ask you this: does anybody really want the Michigan job now?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You think I mean, obviously, the money that's there, you want that job, but like. I don't think you want that job this time. I think you want somebody. If you really want the Michigan job, let's say, I don't know, insert a big younger name. I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head, and I'm drawing a blank. What's his name? James Madison guy who just went out. Healy.
Chesney.
Who's Healy? Why did I say Healy? I don't know. I guess so. Why is it Healy? Chesney. If you're somebody like him, I know he just went to UCLA, obviously. Yeah. But if you want one of the blue blood programs, which obviously Michigan is a blue blood program, I don't think you want this job now because you want somebody else to go in there who can stabilize the program and not just get it out of being a complete mess of Connor Stallions, Sharon Moore. I mean, the end of the Harbaugh era until now. Like, it is for essentially, 4 years now, kind of been a mess. And I don't think, you're going to lose a lot of players this year. I think you're going to lose, not necessarily a lot of support, but you're going to struggle. And so I don't think you want to be the next coach there. I think you want to let there be a buffer coach between the scandal and this. Because, look, I think you look at guys, I'm trying to think of guys like, historically who have replaced the guys that the scandals happen. That's usually not a good job to go into.
Bill O'Brien.
Bill O'Brien makes a lot of sense. I heard it.
I mean, Bill O'Brien literally did this.
Yeah, I think Bill O'Brien makes a ton of sense, and it's a name that I've heard floated. I forget which podcast I heard it on. But his name gets brought up. He literally did this at Penn State. Yeah, and I think that the
only thing is, he's not doing that great right now at Boston College.
Yeah, but look, Boston College is a hard place to coach. I think it's a mid-tier program that, occasionally, by occasionally I mean once, gets a really good quarterback, Matt Ryan, and, that kind of helped. But even when they had Matt Ryan, they weren't necessarily a good program. I think the ceiling for a Boston College is maybe 9 wins. That seems pretty fair to say that they're going to get 9 wins. So I think, look, if I'm Michigan, honestly, Bill O'Brien's my first call.
That's your first call?
Well, not my first call. My first realistic call. I mean, I think you give the DeBoers, you give Nick Saban a call. You give everybody a call who is a top-tier coach and see if they'll come there.
You don't think after what's going on with Notre Dame, you can't give a great sales pitch in Landon Freeman?
No, because we'll talk about that here in a minute. You know why? Because Marcus Freeman just got a free pass into the playoff every year. Why would you leave Notre Dame? You just got the news just came out a couple days ago that apparently it's been in the works, and I think you and I talked about it maybe yesterday, that it seems like it's been in the work for a long time. Anyways, that they're going to be...
I thought it was already a thing. I knew that was a rule. Everyone forgot that
it's the old... Well, because it just came back in. It wasn't a rule before.
Yeah,
it is now,
I just assumed that it was already...
It's the old BCS rule, that if Notre Dame is semi-decent, they get in the playoff. Notre Dame is semi-decent, they get in the BCS... Why would you leave that unless they force you out? Because they can, because really, realistically, because the media and everybody who makes polls sits there and goes, "Oh, Notre Dame's winning football games. We got to put them in the top 10." And then, "Oh, they're in the top 12, so now they automatically get in the playoff." Like that is it would be the silliest thing for him to leave and go to Michigan, where now you have to play a really good Indiana program, and you have to fight against a really good Indiana. You have to fight against a really good Ohio State. Why would you leave a guaranteed, I'm going to call it a guaranteed playoff spot, because especially now if nobody wants to schedule them, like you're going to end up, they're going to go undefeated. If nobody of the good programs wants to schedule them to try and blackball them out of the playoff, they'll play mid-tier teams like your Boston Colleges and go
Arkansas
and go 12-0. And then they're going to like, well, they're undefeated. We got to let them in. Like, that's what's going to happen at Notre Dame. So sure, give Marcus Freeman a call, but I think he would be silly to leave Michigan I think he would be silly to leave Notre Dame to go to a harder place to coach and go to a place that is going to be a harder rebuild. So you don't have to rebuild at Notre Dame and go to a place that's not guaranteed to get into the playoff. Like, if Michigan plays, let's say, 10-2 football in the Big Ten, they're not guaranteed to get into the playoff. Because you might lose to Indiana, you probably lose to, let's say those two losses are, one of those is a regular season, one of them is the Big Ten championship game. You're not guaranteed to get into a 12-team playoff if there's good SEC teams. And if, let's say one of the teams you lose to in the regular season, and I'm scenario building here, let's say one of the teams you lose to in the regular season is Ohio State, or let's say you have to play Indiana, or you lose a random one-off game to Illinois. I don't know. I can't get Brett Bielema a win. You lose to Iowa. There you go. You lose to Iowa on the road. Like, you lose one of those games and then have to go, and then you go play in the Big Ten Championship and lose to Indiana or Ohio State, whoever else is in there. Like, you don't make the playoff. You're not guaranteed to make the playoff there. If you're at Notre Dame and you win 10 games, and maybe one of the Blue Bloods played you. You play Texas A&M early in the season. You lose to Texas A&M. You go 11-1, and that's your one loss. You're in the playoff.
Do you think that there is an ACC coach who wants to leave and go to the Big Ten because they were just left out, and then we keep seeing these seeds being planted of what we're anticipating as two mega conferences?
Are you thinking somebody like a Dabo Swinney?
No, but what if we see someone like Amari Cristobal? What if we see SMU finally get that job open and he jumps ship and goes?
Rhett Lashley?
Yes. Now it's probably not going to happen. Literally, no one has mentioned something like Lashley. I don't even know if anyone's mentioned Cristobal, but they just got left out.
I don't know. I think for me the problem would seem to be that I don't necessarily think, like, is Mario Cristobal a big enough name?
Yeah, I think so. I do.
I don't know. I don't know.
I absolutely think it is.
Maybe.
Now,
Rhett Lashley probably not.
Actually, no.
Now,
But
should Rhett Lashley have been the guy who ended up at Arkansas? Yes.
I don't know if he won or not.
I mean, he must not have. I assume that Rhett Lashley should have been. Now, Hunter Yurachek isn't the smartest person in the world.
No,
should have been the first call.
I think if Lashley wanted it,
It should have been his job.
He would have.
Now, is Cristobal an option? Sure. But is he a program builder? I mean, look at what happened with him at Miami.
I think he's building Miami.
I don't know. I
really do. I think he's building Miami.
Maybe. I don't know. Is it somebody like Manny Diaz or?
It's early, but Diaz is starting to build something.
To me, it just seems to me, and this is what I think about the Michigan job now, because the problem for Michigan is this happened so late. Like, obviously, not to make light of it, you don't want it to happen at all to that person. You don't want, and for Sherrod Moore, like, clearly he's got some things he needs to work on. You don't, like, that is not good stuff. You don't want that to happen either. So, like, from a person standpoint, not good. But from a program standpoint, like, the less important from a human perspective side of it, from a program standpoint, worst timing, period. Because all the big coaches have already swapped. I don't think there's a big name coach that is really available. Like, Lane Kiffin would have been the guy. Like, Lane Kiffin's the big name. Lane Kiffin would have been the guy that you think moved. Like, a couple, Chesney going out to UCLA. Like, all those pieces have already moved. You're not getting Signetti, so you're not getting the best coach in college football. You're not getting, obviously, Ryan Day's not going there. Like, you start looking at, you're not getting Dan Lanning. Like, you start looking at the big names. There's not really one in the SEC that is currently an SEC coach that is good enough that you're like, yeah, we can go get him. Like, you're not taking Elko from Texas A&M. Like, start thinking about big name coaches, and they're just all in places that you're like, yeah, they wouldn't leave that to go to Michigan. And so I think what you have to do if you're Michigan is hire somebody like Bill O'Brien. Makes the most sense to me. It shouldn't be the first call from a like big name splash standpoint, but it is to me the only call. You need a bridge coach. You need a bridge coach. You don't need this is our coach of the future. You need a bridge coach who is gonna keep the program stable and have them go 8-4, 7-5 for 2 years, and then somebody else becomes a big name. The next big name of college football pops their head up, or maybe some shenanigans happen in the next couple years, and Notre Dame really has no shot at getting in the playoff, and then you go, now we go get Marcus Freeman.
So there's a team that did this exact thing last year. Now, it didn't happen because there's an incident. Well, this guy was just like, apparently just an asshole. And you can't be an asshole to literally everyone around you when you win maybe 3 games a year. So, like, yeah, that's not happening. So, brand new GM to the school, fires this coach during the summer. This new GM, who are you going to hire at that point? So he calls a buddy. That buddy coaches this team to literally be a bridge coach for 1 year. And then they make their hire. I mean, they did all that to get who they hired, who knows, but probably going to be a disaster. Do you know who that team is?
Talking about Arkansas?
No.
Oh, that's kind of what Arkansas did.
Far worse of a historic program. Stanford just did that.
Stanford.
You can't do what Stanford football just did.
Yeah.
You're Michigan. You cannot do that. You can't pull a page of Stanford football play.
No, but
that's embarrassing.
I think Bill O'Brien's different though. Bill O'Brien's different.
As many swings as I can to knock one out the fence.
Yes, take swings for sure.
As many as I can.
Take swings, but
beat Penn State at this point. Penn State.
Oh no! You
got to.
No, because this is actually what I started to talk about it.
Have to.
This is what I started talking about when we were watching Army Navy, and I said, nope, I'm going to save it. Why, in the year of our Lord 2025, are we still pretending that Matt Campbell is a hot hire for a football coach?
If it was
Why?
higher, they would have called him like 3 weeks prior.
Matt Campbell, if he was actually a good football coach, would not have been mediocre for the last 6 years at Iowa State. He's been the hot coach since the last time we did an episode of this show, Patrick, and for 2 years before that.
No, it's...
And he's been stuck at Iowa State because he's not actually that good
Well,
of a
I would
coach.
say stuck. He's got interviewed for tons of
Yeah,
times.
what does that tell you? Interviewed
Yeah,
and he stayed there.
Maybe he's a bad interview.
Maybe he's not a good coach. Maybe the only
Maybe
reason,
all these schools are talking to him and they talk to him like, this guy's an idiot.
maybe the only reason he stayed at Iowa State successfully as long as he did was because Brock Purdy played for 15 years.
That will definitely help.
And clearly Block Purdy. Apparently Brock Purdy is a semi-decent quarterback, so I do not understand why. I mean, look, was there anybody really... Again, I think Penn State ran into the same problem that Michigan's going to run into. I don't think there is a really good coach that's available for them to actually have. Now,
That's the difference, though. There were for Penn State. They all just said no.
yeah.
Now, there's really not.
What does that tell you, though, that they all said no? And then Matt Campbell said, oh, yeah, I'll go to Penn State. Yeah, that's a step up. Pay me James Franklin money to be bad for 4 years, to be mediocre for 4 years, and then you fire me. That's Matt Campbell. That is why I think Bill O'Brien is the hire. You have to do that because Bill O'Brien, again, can stabilize the program for multiple years, and you got to think long term. Like, you're probably going to lose Bryce Underwood. Is he really that good of a quarterback? I don't know if we know that yet. Whatever. You're probably going to lose some players. So what you need is somebody who can make sure that the program does it, because you cannot have an Arkansas, and Arkansas obviously was never as good as Michigan to begin with, but you can't have an Arkansas situation where you lose somebody like Bobby Petrino and then bring in somebody like John L. Smith and then have to bring in the next guy who's mediocre and then bring in the next guy who's mediocre and then bring in Chad Morris and then bring it. Like, you can't do something like that. And I think Bill O'Brien stabilizes the program enough. Bill O'Brien is the bridge that you can go, okay, Bill, we're going to give you a 3-year contract. We're going to make sure if the program's good, we're going to keep you. If it's not good, we're going to get rid of you. But I think you're good enough that you can get this team 3 years down the road. In 3 years, if we're winning national championships with you, or if we're challenging for if we're in the playoff with you, we'll sign an extension. If not, we'll get the hot name coach that is the hot name coach. We'll go after Golish when he's had a couple years at South Florida, and it turns out he's actually a really good coach. We'll go get Brian. Well, you're not going to get Brian Hartline because I doubt he would go to Michigan. But like, when we go get one of those, we can go get one of those coaches. We can go get. I almost said Healy again. We can go get.
Who is Healy?
I don't know why. I keep thinking he's Healy. His last name is Healy. You go get Chesney from UCLA if he turns out to be a really good coach at a bigger level and can deal with. Because like now you can't just have a good coach. You also have to have a good coach who can handle NIL stuff, which is going to continue to be a big issue. And so I think Michigan is always going to be Michigan, which means you're always going to be able to compete in the Big Ten if you just don't screw it up. And the way to screw it up is to hire a flop versus hiring somebody who can stabilize your program, keep it going, and then find somebody who can do NIL really well, who can turn Michigan into Michigan of old. Will that happen? I don't know. I think Bill O'Brien is the best option of what's out there right now.
Is that who you would predict is going to be the coach? Is Bill O'Brien?
Probably.
You don't know. My prediction is who I already said DeFreeman would be my first call. Probably not going to be who actually is the coach.
No, I don't disagree that should be your first. I mean, that should be your first call. Probably.
I will tell you who I think realistically.
We
just watched him coach.
Fish?
I think Jed Fish.
But is Michigan right now, is that a better job than Washington?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yes. Absolutely.
Or is that the same thing? I'll use Washington. Is that DeBoer going to Alabama after Nick Saban? Do you want that mess? Not that obviously Nick Saban didn't leave it in a mess, but do you want to be the next guy at a blue blood program? Because This is your thinking of it from a head coaching standpoint.
I just said this guy is Gundy 2.0. Of course he did. His ego would not let him turn that down.
I mean, no. Would he?
I think he couldn't care less what the last guy did.
But is that the guy? Is that?
I think that's that type of personality is exactly the type of person who can handle that.
Has he done enough at Washington to really? Has he done enough?
No, because he hasn't been there.
Exactly. Is that enough to get Michigan to go? Because I don't know if Michigan's interested in him. I don't know if Michigan would be interested.
They are.
I don't know if that's a guy that they would go, oh yeah, that's an in-conference guy, so you're probably gonna have to pay out the booty to get him anyways. I just don't know if that's a move. I don't know if that's something you go with there. Interesting. I don't know. I guess Bill O'Brien makes sense to me because he's had success doing that.
Well, there's also been reports that Jedd Fisch hates living in Seattle. Like their family despises living in Seattle. So those are true. He'll probably do Washington a favor.
The wife said we're going to Michigan. But look, if you don't like Seattle, what are you going to like about Ann Arbor, Michigan? I've never been to either one of them, but
look, I truly believe that the people of Seattle are completely different than the people of Ann Arbor.
That's fair.
So
you can.
There's probably personalities that are not.
If it's good enough for Chris Traeger, it's good enough for Jedd Fisch. Yeah. So other than that, do you think there's any spot, coaching wise, that we need to touch on real fast? Obviously, I said what I said about Matt Campbell. I don't. That's not changing. The one that I don't necessarily love is Billy Napier going to James Madison because I don't like Billy Napier.
Well, he's just going back to the group of five.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be fine there.
That high school basketball coach, I just don't want him to ruin that program. I actually really like the hire of Brian Hartline going to South Florida. You think about
out of nowhere.
You think about the talent of wide receiver position that is in that state, and you get that guy who can coach. So it'll be interesting to see what he does there in terms of handling it. I'm curious what Will Stein does at Kentucky. I think that's an interesting hire. That's a tough program, obviously. Let's see. I'm trying to think of a couple other ones.
I'll tell you an under the radar one that it's a group of five to the group of five, so no one's really getting too excited about that, but. Whenever Memphis lost Silverfield to Arkansas, they brought in Charles Huff from Southern Miss, and he was just a year prior at Marshall.
Yes.
And that's that Marshall team that upset Notre Dame. And they had a great season. Marshall, for whatever reason, chose to not renew his contract. So he goes to Southern Miss. Over 20 of his starters left and went with him.
Yeah.
And so they turned around Southern Miss from winning one game to, I think, 7 or 8 wins this season. And then now he's going to go to Memphis with a ton more resources. They're...
FedEx money, baby!
Yeah, FedEx money. They're literally... I don't know, where they rank. I'm pretty sure you could safely say they're within the top 3 as far as resources in their athletic department, just because FedEx money.
Right.
So, he's going to be able to do a lot more than what he's ever been able to at Marshall or at Southern Miss.
Right.
So, we saw all these juggernauts in the group of 5 that mainly were in that American Conference. Memphis, they were already one of them before they kind of, I don't say went off the rails, but 4 losses is not going to help you.
Yeah.
But I think Memphis is actually going to get a lot better.
Yeah, I question a lot with... I don't think... I
do like the Eric Morris hire at Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I think that one's...
I like that, especially if you can get some of their key players to transfer and go to Oklahoma State with him.
I was going to say, if nothing else, you got rid of Mike Gundy, which is
Yeah,
good enough reason to not actually.
Which his train derailed in that conference championship game when he was literally like 1 or 2 yards away from not only winning the Big 12 but getting a playoff spot.
Well, yeah, but he's also been super mediocre his entire career outside of like 1 or 2 years.
Yeah.
And so
But they were doing that year specifically, like doing the most with horrible quarterback play. I mean, they have had some of the worst quarterback performances I've seen. Like Spencer Sanders was not a good quarterback, and they kept putting him out there.
No, he was not.
There's some years where they could have probably won that conference, possibly made the playoffs if they just had some type of confident quarterback.
Yeah, which is kind of funny after they had a run of some pretty good quarterbacks there for a while. Okay, so let's move now to the college football playoff. We do need to talk about that a little bit. It's almost bedtime. Because we're old. Yes, go ahead.
I've got a pet peeve.
Ooh.
Not even a pet peeve, but I've got a bone to pick. And I've talked to my wife about this. She agrees with me.
Okay.
The way that they have next week's scheduling makes absolutely no sense. You're putting the best game, which is a rematch, on the Friday night slate.
Yeah,
and then look how the Saturday slate is. It's literally from most exciting to least exciting. And they made the most exciting game at 11 o'clock, and then probably a 21-point win.
Yeah.
They're going to put that at the primetime 7 o'clock game?
Well, we'll see. Because we
will see. We know what's going to happen.
I mean, but here's the thing: if it turns out,
the only thing that could have been worse is if they put Ole Miss. They fought those second 2 games because Ole Miss is 100% going to derail Tulane because they've already done it.
Well, but here's the thing:
lane or no lane.
I think.
I'm not saying that because I'm a very, very, very pro. Group of 5 deserves their fair shot. Otherwise, why even have them in this whole thing? So
here's why the schedule's the way it is.
So I'm not saying that just because I'm not trying to just.
Here's why the schedule is the way it is. The 11 o'clock game, Miami, Texas A&M, right?
That should be proper.
7-10. Here's why it's the early game. The Miami crowd. You want the Miami, which obviously playing at Texas A&M. I get that, but Patrick, if you have learned nothing else about the college football playoff, what is it about? It is not about what matters on the football field. It is about what is going to have the most people watching it. And they do everything they're going to do for the money. They know Texas A&M people are going to show up at 11 a.m. in College Station and watch a football game.
Midnight.
They will. But Miami people will watch it on TV if it's an early game. They won't watch it on TV if it's late and they can be out on South Beach partying. So that's why that's the early game. Why is Ole Miss Tulane is the middle afternoon game? Because that's when an SEC game is played.
Miami shouldn't be out sitting when Santa Claus is watching.
I don't disagree. But that is why it's that. Why is Oklahoma, Alabama at 7? Because that's when a primetime SEC game is going to be.
They put that on Friday?
I know. They put that on Friday, but that's okay. Why is Oregon and James Madison at 6:30 on that Saturday? Because you want the West Coast people watching the game. So they did it based on time zones. Do I agree with their choices? Not necessarily, but it absolutely makes sense from a team. Now let's talk about what actually matters, which is what's on the football field. Let's start with that Texas A&M Miami game. First off, the committee got it right. Notre Dame should not be in the playoff. Miami should be. Get in a dang conference, win your conference. Now you can say the same thing about Miami. Don't lose to Miami. If you want in over Miami, don't lose to Miami. Miami should be there. That being said, I think Texas A&M dog walks them. I think people are worried about the other 2 games, 2 of the other 3 games, being an issue. I think Let's go there now because we're going to talk all of these games real fast. I don't see an issue with the group of 5 teams being in there because what's their big concern? Oh, well, they're going to get dog walked. That has happened every year with these good Power 5 teams, Power 4 teams. Now there's no longer a Pac-12. Power 4 teams.
Back.
It should, and it should be fixed, and that is part of the solution to how you actually fix the college football playoff. That being said, the idea that the team getting dog walked, whether they're going to get dog walked on paper or not, should be a determining factor of whether they get into the playoff is complete baloney. Because every single year that there has been a college football playoff, there has been a team that was from a Power 4 conference that has gotten dog walked. And so it is a horrible excuse for you to, for somebody, not you, for somebody to sit there and say, oh, James Madison should be in there because they're going to get smoked by Oregon. Oh, Tulane should be in there because they're going to get smoked by Ole Miss. Sorry about it. Other teams be better. Be better in the regular season. That's your solution. Be better in the regular season, get into the playoff. That being said, A&M, I think dog walks Miami. I think that has a potential to be like a 40-7 game.
Woo-hoo.
Now, can Texas A&M put up that kind of points? We'll see.
It's a little disrespectful.
It's a little disrespectful, but I don't think this Miami team is that good. Now,
I don't think they're that bad.
I don't think they're that bad, but I think Texas A&M in a playoff, some team that is a quote-unquote good team is going to get dog-walked. It's going to be them. I think Miami has that kind of energy. It's an early game, so we'll see. That plays is. When was the last time Miami played in College Station? I don't know if they ever have. That is.
I think they played a series recently.
Maybe. That's going to be a hard place to go in there and play. I think they got to wake up early and get in there and go. I think A&M's going to be ready to go with that game. What do you think?
I mean, I think A&M's going to win too. I don't know if it's as murderous as you're making it out that it's going to be, but I do think, they split the series from 2022 2023.
Okay, so
That's like very recently. Yeah, I just don't think Miami is that bad. I think they're going to be able to score. Now, A&M, you got a really good defense. They also have played in plenty of stinker games, or their offense has been very slow to wake up.
Yeah.
You can't start off slow in this game, I don't think, because Miami does have an offense that can put up points on the board.
Yeah. But you're also going to...
That's the series that you're really watching for, is whenever Miami is on offense.
Yeah, I think
how many times can they score against Texas A&M?
Yeah, I think for Miami to win, they have to win a shootout. And a shootout might be a low-scoring shootout, which sounds weird. A lower scoring shootout. But I think for Miami to win, it has to be like that. I think Texas A&M should win this game. Can win it however they need to.
As long as they start off quick, they're good. They're going to win this game.
Yeah. So we both have Texas A&M. Let's move on to that Ole Miss Tulane game. I'm going up the bracket.
This is going to be quick.
I think Ole Miss wins. I think this is going to be one of those games that ends up looking worse in the box score than it actually is. I know they played earlier in the season. I think it's going to be the kind of game where, like, ultimately Ole Miss ends up winning, let's say, like 38-21, which just is a score that looks bad. But I think it's going to be a lot closer and be like it's going to be like a 20-17 kind of game.
I can see your point just because Ole Miss is not a defense that's going to really be able to make they're basically not going to have a lot of 3-and-outs, basically. Like,
right.
I'm not going to say that Tulane is going to score on them
and we have
4 or 5 times, but I mean,
and
they will definitely be able to move the ball down the field.
Right. But I think the big question mark, obviously, and it's not a big shock that this is the big question mark. The big question mark is, how does Ole Miss, do they come out kind of pissed off that Lane left, or do they come out thinking this could go 3 ways even. Do they come out pissed off thinking that they're pissed that Lane left, and then they're actually come out too charged up and don't play well for the first half, or
maybe like undisciplined football,
right? Or do they come out in the first half and just kind of lay a stinker and then figure it out because they're sad,
they're just
I don't
depressed,
know, whatever, or because what's his name? Is it Golding? Hasn't figured out how to head coach yet. And, they're kind of still figuring all that out. And, look, it's a big deal to lose your head coach going into the college football playoff. And I don't want to undersell that. Now, do I think they're still far and away the better football team? Yeah, I think so, which is why I think the first half is going to be tight. I think Ole Miss ultimately runs away with it. How late in the game they run away with it could be fourth quarter. Could be late.
I think it could be close in the first quarter, but then you're going to see.
I think the entire first half's close.
I don't know about that.
I think the entire first half's close. They have a come to Jesus meeting at halftime and end up running away with it at some point. But I don't think Tulane is bad enough that Ole Miss losing their head coach and potentially we don't. Part of the deal is we don't know what kind of turmoil is going on inside that program with what players are going to leave and follow Lane Kiffin. What players are going to leave as soon as they can. Do they really want to be playing that much? I mean, I know they want to be playing because it's college football playoff and you got a chance to win a national championship, but there's so many questions with that program that I think we at least have to ask. I think it's not surprising if the first half is not good for them.
I will say I don't know how much of an impact this will have, but it's funny to me too that we're seeing two programs that are going through similar experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them have just lost their head coach to a quote-unquote better job. The only thing is, one of them is still going to be coaching their former team.
Yeah.
When the other one, obviously, we know what went on with Ole Miss and their coach.
Right.
But
which I think is what makes that so different. And I think you can...
it makes an impact. It's not going to be like a ginormous one. You'll be able to feel it, though.
I think... Man, I don't know. I think it goes kind of, you get the flip side of that both ways. Does Tulane play harder or play better because they're trying to send their coach off to his new job with kind of an epic
playoff? A lot of those
run?
guys know, too, that
if they play really well, they might get to go with them.
They might get invited to go to Gainesville.
Yeah. So, I am still going to pick Ole Miss, like I said. So we both got Ole Miss. We both have Texas A&M. Because we got to move through this. We got to start moving a little bit faster as per usual. Oklahoma A&M. Oklahoma versus Alabama.
Oklahoma. Hey, you said go fast. I went fast.
You went fast.
Oklahoma.
That wasn't you. The problem with this game for Alabama is that they can't run the football.
No.
The problem on
Oklahoma doesn't necessarily have a fantastic offense either, but you definitely see them get those big chunk plays, and those home run hits when Alabama's really not doing that.
Yeah,
and if Ty Simpson, I saw a report that Ty Simpson could be dealing with a back injury.
Back injury, which is not good.
No, this is.
I'm picking Alabama. I'm going Alabama. I think playoff experience, just in terms of the program.
Personal thing.
I think I'm going to pick Alabama to win this game. Let's go now to Oregon and talk about Oregon James Madison.
Well, this is. I will say this: if you're wanting to see a Group of 5, Power 4 game that could be close, I think this is it. I think Oregon is overrated.
I think Oregon's overrated. I think the spread's too big.
The spread's
just disrespectful. The spread tells me that the people don't watch it.
I think Oregon's still going to win. I'm not trying to pick an upset. But I think this is going to be the close game. Oregon is not where you're used to seeing. Like, Dylan Gabriel's not walking through that door. Nix isn't walking through that door. I don't understand the Dante Moore number 2 overall pick. I think that is beyond insanity. Yeah. I think it's going to be a really... And, I mean, they could be coaching. I don't know. But, they just lost both of their coordinators.
Yeah. I think this game's going to surprise a lot of people. In that... And I hope it does. I hope it does in the sense of I hope James Madison can go out there and put up enough of a show that people go oh wait, maybe we were being a little like because there's a lot of people, and you and I obviously don't have this problem as much because we come from a Sunbelt school, and like the hard part here is to try not to be Sunbelt bias.
I'm not Boston saying they're going to win.
No,
like, I'm just saying that Oregon is just completely overrated. Now you're going to see like what's probably going to happen is you're going to see honestly a battle of resources.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, compare James Madison's to Oregon's.
Right.
I think you're going to see in the fourth quarters when they pull away, and it's not even really like they're figuring it out. Is that James Madison probably at that point just has nothing left in the tank?
Right. It's going to be a depth issue at the end of the day. Here's what I'm going to Here's what I'm going to say, and this is I'm picking Oregon still, so we're both picking Oregon. It's not going to surprise anybody. What I will say is remember that a team that we're about to talk about. 2 years ago, a guy named Kirk Cignetti was there. And that doesn't play in a factor into this team. I'm not saying that. But when that guy left to go to Indiana, he took a buttload of James Madison players to Indiana and built a program that is now has a bye week and just won the Big Ten championship. So I think the talent gap that a lot of people think exists doesn't necessarily exist. And it comes down, in a lot of sense, it comes down to, obviously depth is the issue. You end up at a bigger school, you have that same talent, but you have more of it. You have slightly better talent, and you have more of it. At a place like James Madison, you have good players, but you don't necessarily, you're not too deep at every position. You're not 3 deep at half of your positions. And that's where the difference ultimately comes from. But again, remember that this is a program that has, one, not been in FCS that long, and managed to have 2 coaches go to big-time programs. UCLA is not necessarily a big-time program, but you had 2 coaches go to a good program, a program that has historically been okay. Indiana's historically been bad, but obviously we've seen what Cignetti's done at Indiana, who we're about to talk about, and so just keep that in mind that when that game starts and if they don't get blown out, like there's a reason. It's not because Sunbelt teams don't have good players. It's that the depth isn't there. But this is a team that has some talent on it. All that to be said, we're both picking Oregon. So that gives us, let's go down and we'll kind of try and be a little bit quick, but obviously we haven't talked about these teams yet either. Oregon, if they win that game, would play Texas Tech. We both have Oregon winning it. So Oregon, Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech wins that game. Texas Tech,
better, more complete team.
Yeah, and we can talk about Texas Tech maybe more in the next round, but I think they win that game as well. So we got Texas Tech winning. That means then you have Oklahoma, I have Alabama. Either one of them's got to play Indiana. I don't think Indiana, fresh off of a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback in Mendoza, Fernando, which kind of makes it like an L. Francisco. Fernando. I think Indiana wins that game. I think Indiana's the best team in football right now. Obviously, they just beat Ohio State, who was the other argument, I guess. And so
they were literally 1-2, and they showed us they should have been 1-2.
Yeah. So going down to the Sugar Bowl, then we both pick Ole Miss to win that game, so that makes this one easy. You get Ole Miss versus Georgia.
Woo!
Boy.
Georgia also looks like one of the best teams in the country right now.
Yeah.
They are absolutely playing their best football right now.
Yeah, there's something about this Georgia team that I just don't trust.
I feel the opposite.
I think they're going to win this game. There's something about just the way it's the way Georgia plays football. Obviously, they're always really solid on defense.
Yep.
And they're playing good offense right now. But there's something about it that they seem like the team that is most likely to go stagnant from what we have left. Now, obviously, we picked 2 winners already. Between what would be Georgia versus Ole Miss, and then A&M versus Ohio State. I think Georgia's offense has the best chance to go stagnant and be a problem. I think they strike me as the team that is, if they go cold. Now, I think they win this game. If they go cold, I don't think they get hot.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. They're a diesel engine. If they're running, they're fine. Mm-hmm. if they stop, they're going to take a while to get going back. And so I think that's going to cause a problem in the next matchup. I think so, but we both have Georgia winning that game. Now, going to the last game in this round, that gives us, we both picked A&M, so A&M versus Ohio State. I think Ohio State wins this game.
Yeah,
that's not a question. I think what I just said about Georgia being potentially the hardest team to get going, I think Texas A&M is the most likely team to have a letdown and be really slow to get started. And I think they can start slow and speed up really fast. But I also think that, they're going to run it. They're running an Ohio State team that's just better than them. So it kind of doesn't matter to some degree. I think Ohio State wins that game. So I think that gives us having all the top seeds going through.
I think if Ohio State can stop the home run hits,
you
got it.
Yeah.
Because that's really what gets A&M.
Yep.
So, if they're not being able to get those giant chunk plays, you got it.
Yeah. I think interestingly, and we might touch on it before we get out of here if we have a chance to. I think interesting, though, based off what we have in our semifinal, we've got Texas Tech, Indiana, Ohio State, Georgia. I think this year actually, I know a lot of people complain about it. I think this is a good example of this could be a 14 playoff. Like those, to me, those are, and obviously ranking-wise, those are the 4 best teams in the country. I think they're far and away the 4 best teams in the country.
Yeah.
I don't, we just went through those semifinal games, or quarterfinal games. I don't, none of those I feel really conflicted on. Even if, obviously if James Madison wins instead of Oregon, I don't feel like that's not going to change anything. If Alabama or Oklahoma makes it through, that doesn't change anything. Indiana wins. Ole Miss, Tulane, same thing. Miami doesn't offer anything different than Texas A&M playing Ohio State. So, I think you could make an argument that this year could have been a 14 playoff, and we'd be fine. So let's pretend like it's a 14 playoff now because we're in the semifinals.
Yep.
We've got Texas Tech versus Indiana, Ohio State, Georgia. So let's start Ohio State, Georgia. Who do you think wins that game?
Georgia. I really do. To me, they look like the more I'm just going to piggyback what I said. They're a more complete team, and they've shown that against some of the better opponents in college football. Ohio State struggled, and they finally played a good team.
Yeah, what'll be interesting though is I think Ohio State. What intrigues me about this spot, I think I'm going to pick Ohio State.
Okay.
And I think the reason why is because I think they will have struggled. Obviously, they struggled against Indiana. Lost. I would call that a struggle. I think they win against A&M / Miami, whoever it ends up being, no matter what. The question mark for me is what kind of game do they have there? I think that either one of those opponents gives them the opportunity to actually get that confidence back and really be a good team and not struggle against another good team. And I think if that happens, if they come out and just put all the pieces together, figure it out, they've obviously got a couple weeks off. Ryan Day is a good coach. I think we can say that at this point. I think he's at least a good coach. Whether he's a great coach or not, we'll see. That might be more of a discussion. But is he a good coach? Absolutely. I think that's not an argument even. So can he turn that team into the national championship level team? I think so. If that's what he does, if they use that game against A&M Miami to do that, I think Ohio State shows up and wins. Because I think the difference is Georgia maybe a more complete team? Yes. But again, I think it's that Diesel thing of if Ohio State puts it together, it's a lot more Ferrari-esque than what Georgia can do. I think if Ohio State can figure out big plays against Georgia, I don't think Georgia can't win in a shootout. And granted, their defense is really good, but if Ohio...
That's why I don't think there's any possible way you're worried about a shootout in this game. It's who can probably score
28 points. 28 seems like the winning number.
28 seems like a lot in this game.
I don't know. I think, again, there's something about this Georgia team that
I think if you can score 21, you're probably good.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think there's something about this Georgia team that doesn't feel. Again, consistent's a good word. I think they're a consistent team. Do I feel like they have the it that you're looking for? No. If that makes sense.
Does Ohio State have that though? That defensive unit is probably it, but like.
Do they have it?
They should,
currently?
but we're not really seeing it.
See that's where I'm thinking. Do they have it currently? I think you can make the argument that no, they don't have it currently. Do they have? Does that exist within that roster? I think so, and that's where the difference is. If they can turn it on, I think Ohio State's a better football team. If they can't turn it on, obviously they got a massive problem. If they turn it on halfway, I think Georgia wins that football game as well. I think they figure it out. They get a good opponent. I think they figure it out. I think Ohio State, by the time they get there, gets to the national championship game. So you're going Georgia. I'm going Ohio State. Top of the bracket, which I think is actually the two best teams. Texas Tech, Indiana. Who wins?
I think Indiana's offense is better. Both teams are good on defense. Tech might be a little bit better, but I think Indiana's offense is just they're being able to put up points at great amounts to where they should be able to just outscore and obviously not like put up 50, put up 70 like they've been able to do.
Right.
But I think their offense has been like clicking so well that they'll be able to put up enough points to take care of this. And I mean, like Indiana's my national champion.
Yeah,
That's all said and done.
So I think that's kind of where. Well, and look, I think coaching plays into this too. I think Signetti is such a. It's dynamic, maybe the right word. Coach.
That might be.
That might be the word I'm thinking of that I want to go with him. I think. To me, this team, that if nothing else, that team kind of has. I think Texas Tech is a year away. Like if you asked me, especially earlier in the season, I would have said like, I think Texas Tech kind of came out of nowhere for most people. Obviously, they're putting a lot of money into NIL, and they're going to be better next year. I think this is their walkthrough. This
until when Dylan Raiola leads the show.
Yeah, yeah. You know that's happening next year. Yeah. I think this is their walkthrough. This is their practice run at it. And this is their get some guys some experience being in a big game, and then next year because look, no one in the Big 12 is challenging them next year. I don't think. You look across that conference, maybe BYU, but they've obviously shown that and they're going to spend a lot more money than BYU. Although I don't know, Crumble might go after it.
They're going to spend a lot of money too.
They're going to spend a lot of money at it, but. So I think maybe the Big 12 looks really top heavy and better next year, but I think next year is Texas Tech's shot at it. I think this year it just looks to me Indiana feels like the team, and so I think Indiana wins that game. I think Texas Tech will put up a good run for it, and it'll be a tight game. But I think I'm going to go with Indiana, which means we're in a national championship game. We've both got Indiana in there. You've got Georgia. I've got Ohio State in what would be a rematch. And this feels really
that's
weird.
What I want to see is a rematch.
Yeah, it feels really weird for me to not have an SEC team in there. I'm usually pretty heavy SEC team. Not biased, but just that's usually the case. Is that there's usually an SEC team that I think is going to get there. I just again, it doesn't matter. I'm putting Ohio State in there. Against Indiana, you got Indiana, Georgia. You just said that Indiana.
I blurted it out. They're my national champion.
I think they are too. They're again. I think there's something about them. They feel team of destiny.
Yep.
And yeah, it's almost one of those unquantifiable things that you just like. It feels like this is Indiana's. Knock on wood. It feels like this is Indiana's championship to lose. And obviously they faced a lot of adversity at different points of the season.
Yep.
They've kind of, you look at the Penn State game,
yeah.
you look at they've done the right things at the right time, and like I said earlier, like sometimes you just need that to happen. You need the pieces to fall in place.
We just saw him win the Heisman. We've seen him in several games whenever they needed him the most, come through and make big drives in order to get those game-winning moments. Like, we saw that in the Penn State game. We saw that in the Ohio State game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he is the Heisman for a reason.
Right.
I think, cards on the table when you need to make a play in order to extend the drive or score, Mendoza's got it.
Yeah, and he's just was it who else who said? I think we discussed this earlier, and it wasn't actually you who said it. I thought it was you who said it. He's the Andrew Luck of Kirk Cousins.
I just said he was Kirk Cousins.
He's the Andrew Luck of Kirk Cousins. I love that about him, and he's just got some sort of. He's got it. He's got, and I don't know. It's a different it than like a Baker Mayfield or a Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah,
it's
not that.
He's a bit of a cornball, and he's a bit of whatever, but he is a darn good football player.
He just goes out there and has fun.
And I think that's what we're looking at. He obviously, speaking of dog walked everybody in the Heisman voting to actually win. And look, he doesn't turn over the football a ton. They're a team that hold on to the football really well. And man, if you're Miami, you got to think, how do we not get that guy? And they've played. I think Ohio State was the bar. If they could get past Ohio State in the I almost said ACC in the Big 12 championship, Big 10 championship game. I'm gonna say every conference except for what I actually mean. I think that was kind of a big moment for them as a program of like, okay, we're for real. Because I think to some degree they need a moment as like a. It's a weird, like, collective energy that I feel like sometimes you see it. I feel like you see it for years and years and years. The Cubs, like, had rosters that could have won World Series. You just felt like a collective, like, they're never going to do it. Same with the Boston Red Sox. They had good teams. You just felt like the entire ecosphere of their fandom had that, like, we're never going to do it. We're always second best, whatever. And I feel like, obviously, Indiana being the all-time losingest, the most losing program of all time in college football, like kind of had that, like, where's the belief come from? And I think them beating Ohio State, winning the Big Ten championship, kind of getting that monkey off the back is going to give them just like, they kind of got all the cards are in their hand. Like, yeah, it would be a little bit of a disappointment for them if they lose at some point and don't win a natty, but like also like, you're playing with house money at this point. Like, you've got nothing to fear. If you lose, okay, you're Indiana. Like, no one's going to be, like, you had an incredible run. You ran into a good team in Texas Tech. You ran into a good team in Ohio State. You ran into a good team in Georgia. You lost. Like, okay, that happens. But I just think the win over Ohio State kind of gives them that little, like, okay, this is possible. We can do it. Yeah. So we're both picking Indiana. Could you imagine, like, 3 years, like the last time we did a show, could you imagine saying, hey, in a couple years, you're going to pick Indiana to win a football national championship over Georgia, over Alabama, over Ohio State. Oh, they might also beat Texas Tech on the way. That feels a little bit wild. So do we need to fix the college football playoff? Let me ask you that before I say anything that...
I don't think so. I really don't. Because everyone's going to complain about Group of Five. But you got to think, it's not necessarily made to be a guarantee that they're even in there. They do need to fix the 5 conference. Because whenever they made it, the Pac-12 was still a thing. When they wrote all these rules, it was supposed to be the top 5 ranked conference champions. When it was the Power 5. So they were banking on, no matter what, we're going to have an SEC team, a Big 12 team, a Big 10 team, an ACC team, and a Pac-12 team, all ranked above the best of the best in the Group of 5, or the best ranked conference champion in the Group of 5. Well, now there's only 4 power conferences. So now you're really opening an actual window for not only just one group of 5, which that doesn't bother me, but multiple group of 5s in this case. So we do need to fix something like that. I don't know what that is, but we do need to fix that whole top 5 ranked conference champions. I don't know if that's doing away with conference championships. I don't know if that solves anything, but we got to change that rule.
Okay. That is the simplest solution.
It's not going to happen because there's too much money.
The only way, here's how you fix it. And this is not going to, anybody, if you are happening to listen to this, and if you've made it this far, we're at 2 hours, and I will try to be as quick with this as I can be. If you've listened to this show in the past, this is where we're at in terms of college football is not a shock. You and I have talked about this for years. Before NIL came about, this was the whole problem that you and I had talked about years and years and years ago, first couple of years doing our show, that this is what the problem is when you start paying players. And you and I have talked about too, I think even on the show, that I'm not against necessarily paying players. I'm not against players earning money for playing college football and all the money that gets brought in, yada, yada, all those arguments. We don't need to go over that again. But this is where I always saw it going. Where I always saw it going was super conferences. Where I always saw it going was a minor league NFL, where essentially you get the top 20, let's say, college football programs who can spend the most money in NIL. You get what is essentially, maybe the better example, is you end up with a Champions League. But a Champions League where it's all based on money, and it's all based on, okay, we're going to shut out every other school. We're going to have the top 5, what would essentially be the top, let's say, 10 SEC teams, the top 4 Big Ten teams. You would have said Clemson up until now.
You're describing something very perfectly. And you described it to soccer, but you actually described it something, a different sport. And it's how it's exactly laid out right now.
What other sport?
Baseball. You're describing professional baseball.
Yes, in the way baseball is right now.
Because you could look at these high school athletes. They can either get drafted and go ahead and play. Like some guys now get drafted and spend very little time in the minors and go straight onto the major league team. Others, you're starting at rookie ball. They might start you at single A.
Yeah.
Sometimes you might even make it to double A. So what is that? You're starting at Toledo. You're starting at Arkansas State. Or you might be starting at Memphis.
Right.
You might be starting at Utah State. Or you might just be good enough, you're starting at Oregon.
Right.
You're starting at LSU.
Well, and the problem is, and what people I think haven't totally caught on to is that that's ultimately what is causing college football to not be. I don't think college football has been as good or as entertaining the last 3-4 years, partially because of what has been happening in terms of not just player movement, but in terms of you're getting a top heavy college football. And what ultimately I think the college football is headed towards is you're heading towards, because, and this year is a great example of why. Texas is looking at it and they're going, why would we ever play a good team in non-conference? We just should play our conference schedule. Like, if that's what matters, let's play our conference schedule. So the talent, the play gap is essentially going to end up being that the G5 teams don't matter. You're going to get away from those. Those teams are going to have to essentially go, well, we can't afford, Arkansas State can't afford to play football with the Texases. Arkansas State can't afford to play football with Alabama. You're never going to be able to close that talent gap. You're never going to be able to really compete, especially as this goes farther and farther and farther, because what's going to end up happening is they're going to shut everybody else out, because now especially they're going to go, oh, look, James Madison got blown out, or they're going to go, oh, look, Tulane got blown out. We should never let those teams back in here again. We're going to refix the rules so that they can't ever really get in here. And so then what's going to happen? Well, then nobody was going to want to go to there. And like, I realize that that's kind of already a thing that exists anyways, but when you make it so that there's really only 10, 15 teams that matter, that's where everybody's going to go. And so you're going to end up with a lot of people sitting on a bench getting paid a lot of money because those schools can force to pay out a lot of money. But you're going to end up with a top-heavy college football that's just not fun.
In this scenario, you're going to see a lot of scheduling UCLA or scheduling Arkansas, and those end up being money games.
Well,
because, like, for example, like now in the SEC, you have to play a 9-game conference schedule, but you still have to play a Power 4 / Notre Dame team. And so what Georgia is going to do is he's going to try his best to call Stanford and get them on, or call Colorado.
And then those teams that are already struggling in their
call
conference.
Boston College to get them on, and everyone's going to be begging them. And so now that's going to turn into, well, you have to pay me X amount. And then probably negotiate it to where if you try and cancel that, i.e. if they just so happen to turn into a decent program between then and the actual game, then you're going to have to buy me out and pay me the full amount anyway. So the Toledo, UCA, those type of games now turn into much bigger programs that are money games.
And here's where the problem only comes from, is that, because you hear people saying already, like, oh, expand it to 16 teams. You are always going to have an issue, unless you get to, let's say, 64 teams, just be really crazy and stupid. When you get to that far, you're going to go, okay, well, we got 64 teams in. Yeah, there's clearly, like, we're starting to talk about, like, is Arkansas State getting in versus is Illinois getting in? And nobody cares at that point. Like, you're not there's very little people who are, like, upset if Arkansas State gets left out. But if you go to 16 teams, you're still going to have that problem of...
No, that's why I don't understand.
But here's why. Here's why you're going to have that problem. Because as it is right now, and this is why college football will always have this problem with the college football playoff, and they love it. Look, the committee does not mind, because it just means more money for them. Mm-hmm. It means, not for them, it means more money for the big schools that are going to be involved in the college football playoff. Because it generates all this talk. I mean, we're talking about it. It needs to be fixed. We'll go to 16 teams. Oh, that's not going to fix it. Oh, we'll go to 20 teams. The problem is that currently, right now, the way it is, and the way it was when it was 4 teams, the reason it was a problem with 4 teams is because especially at that time, there was still a 5th conference. So your problem there was, okay, well, now you're still leaving out a conference.
Yeah.
But even then, the problem is that, especially now that we're at 12 teams, you are arbitrarily making up arbitrary reasons for why a team gets in.
Yeah.
Miami, Notre Dame. Like, sure, we can go, okay, Miami gets in. Like, Miami should have got in because they beat Notre Dame. Well, okay, but they didn't win their conference. So we're saying it's okay to not win your conference and you still get in the playoff. Okay, so what does a conference championship mean? Well, it means nothing really, unless we need it to mean something, and then it means something. Well, and Notre Dame's not even in a conference, so what do we do with them? Well, we like Notre Dame, they make us a lot of money, so we'll put them in. But they lost to Miami, so now we can't. You run into all these sorts of problems because you don't have a solid reason as to this is what gets you into the playoff. So this is what you do. First, fix the Pac-12. Every solution require those stupid teams, Stanford, that went to the ACC and the Big Ten to go back. Get back. Geographically tie your conferences so they make sense. They're not super conferences. Go back. So then the conferences make more sense from if you win your conference, you're winning. Because like what? The Big Ten this year, and even in the SEC, you run into so many teams who don't play each other. And you run into so many teams that, like, they have common opponents, but it's such a mess because you have so many teams, and it's a little bit harder to go, like, okay, well, these are the really good teams, and these are the not really good teams. and sure, you end up beating each other up a lot more, probably in the conquest of that. But like that is so pick the Pac-12. That's the easiest thing. And hang on, I go back to because I actually fixed this the other day. Me and my buddy Drew at work were talking about it a little bit. So fix it to the Pac-12. If we want to keep it at 12 teams, I will allow it to be at 12 teams. But what fixing the Pac-12 does is it gives you back to 10 conferences. 10 full conferences. Then you give every conference championship a playoff spot. Because that kills the argument of, well, okay, like, you automatic bid those people. And I get it. People go, okay, but then you end up with the MAC champion in there. And the MAC champion's never going to beat the Big Ten champion. The MAC champion's never going to beat the SEC champion. Okay, I get that. But that is how you avoid this slog that we're in of trying to make up arbitrary reasons. So you go 12 teams, and then so this is my favorite. Option 2 is just straight, you go 10 teams, all conference champions. That's how you solve it.
I don't like that.
I don't love that.
I hate that.
I don't hate it. Because here's the deal. What that ultimately does, if you do it that way, every conference championship is a playoff game then. You expand the playoff to 20 teams, but every conference championship is now a playoff game because you have to win a conference to get in. So now you get to expand the conference or the college football playoff. It just includes the conference championship games. So if you win, you're in. Boom. Win, you're in. Where there is no way that at least kills the arbitrary. Now, I know what people would go with that. Well, okay, let's say this year, what would have sucked, and I'll say it. You and I both think that the two best teams in college football still are Ohio State and Indiana. So if you go 12 teams, you go all 10 conference championships, and then the top two ranked non-conference championship winners. So we can let Notre Dame in if we have to, if they're good enough, or in that case,
So in that case, only one wild card.
I mean, that's assuming that Ohio or that Notre Dame. That's if Notre Dame is higher. So like, if you get to a case where, like, let's say this year Georgia and Ohio State both lose in their conference championship game, then Georgia and Ohio State both get in, and you don't. Sorry about it, Notre Dame. Join a conference, and then you have a path into the playoff. That I like because that works for me because you're so less likely to have 3 of the best teams that should have won a conference championship lose a conference championship. You're still going to run into that maybe occasionally, but it's going to be few and far between. I think the other way to do that is make the conference. I mean, you essentially make the conference championship the playoff games. You do the 1 and 2 ranked teams, then get a bye week. So it still kind of encourages having a non-conference schedule that makes sense. But I think that is the way you do it. Like, because then you have to have non-arbitrary reasons for teams to get into the playoff, or else you're always going to run into the argument of, well, so-and-so should be in instead of them. And you're going to end up with a good team left out. You're going to end up with, it's going to happen, but you should be winning your conference. If you need to be the national championship, you should be winning your conference championship. If you're the best team in the country, like, to me, there is no, like, I get it. Stuff happens. You lose a game. So what? That's the name of college. That is how college football has always been, is that to be the best, you got to be the best. So why are we letting, why are we letting a 3-loss Alabama team have a shot at the national championship? They're clearly not the best team in college football. What is the difference between them? Why are they getting in there? And we're saying, like, I mean, look, I don't think Notre Dame should be in there anymore. But why is it in Alabama? Like, that wasn't even really a discussion. But we're talking about a Miami team who didn't win the ACC. Who was in the ACC championship game, Patrick? Duke. Who else was in the ACC championship game, Patrick? Virginia. Who was not in the ACC championship game? Miami. Because they were in a 5-way tie for their conference. That... argue till the cows come home, the conference tiebreakers were stupid. Fine. Mm-hmm. That's fine. But we can't get to a situation where, because I saw somebody float it, and maybe you and I talked about it or saw a reel or something where somebody was like, I heard it said that, oh, well, the tiebreaker should just be like the highest ranked team. Like if they're the highest ranked team, they automatically get in. No. Like then we're again arbitrarily saying like, what, Miami had a better, they lost the same amount of games in conference, but Miami beat Notre Dame, so that automatically means they should win the conference, but Notre Dame's not in their conference, so they don't have any play. Like this is where you lose me, is that I think that's why it needs to be, as much as people don't want to like it on the surface, it needs to be a non-arbitrary reason that a team is in the college football playoff. That if you make it so that really even I'm okay with it only being conference champions that get into the college football playoff, because then you expand it and then you get your college football expansion. Brand the conference championships as college football playoff. Fine with that. It's just that they're playing, however you need to word it, I'm fine with it. They can be playing games, college football playoff games. Like they had NCAA tournament was like, oh, we need to expand, so let's put in playing games. Fine. All conference championships are playing games. If you win it, you're in the playoff. If you don't win it, sorry about it. Season's over. Go play in a bowl game. The season's not over. Go play in a bowl game. Like that to me is the solution, because otherwise you're always going to end up. But that also, unless we really want to go off the rails and do promotion relegation, which you and I have talked about so many times, obviously it would never happen in college football, but that would be my favorite way to do it. Obviously I like soccer, but I think there's too much in the air, and it's the reason 4 didn't work. It's the reason 8 doesn't work. It's the reason 12 doesn't work. It's the reason 16 won't work. It's the reason this, because as long as there is the fact that there is a playoff committee who gets together to decide who, and they let Hunter Yurachek be in charge of it, that's all you need to know to tell me that they need to fix the problem there. The fact that we have a committee who decides, like they know football better than everybody else, that they know football's decided on the field. Let it be decided on the field. If you want to win a college football championship, and then you know what can happen, then it doesn't necessarily. If it's all conference championships, then non-conference doesn't really matter, and you can get good playoff, or you can get playoff caliber games. I'm fine if, let's say, Ohio State wins the championship, they lose. Let's say Texas wins the SEC, they lose to Ohio State early in the season. That loss doesn't hurt them. But we played that game, and maybe it helped them get better. Maybe that is the reason they got good enough to win the SEC. Yeah. They win the SEC, they make a playoff run. You play those teams again. I think it can work so that works. All that to say, I think college football playoff is a mess. Them going to 16 teams isn't going to solve it.
No.
Them going to 16 teams will just mean that somebody else gets left out.
Exactly.
And so I think
you just got to stand your ground at 1.
Yeah, either you stay at 12, and I think 12 is fine. In the sense of, for the most part, we're not going to run into a situation where there's going to be 2 group of 5 teams, especially if you fix the Pac-12. You're most of the time not going to run into a situation where you're arguing between 3 lost teams. I mean, you are, because you're at 12. And that's just going to happen. Like, there's going to be a 3 lost team get in.
Well, that's the thing.
Back into
the more you expand it, you're going to get a 4 lost team in.
You're going to get worse and worse teams in there, and it's like, for what reason? Like, at some point, I go, okay, sure, we can let a 4-loss SEC team in there. Is that really better than letting James Madison get in there because they won the Sun Belt? Is that really better than letting Tulane in there because they won the American? Like, at a point, like, is it really, like, I don't know. I start going like, okay, a 4-loss team, why does a 4-loss team deserve a chance at a national championship that a, 11-win James Madison team doesn't? And you're always going to, again, that's the point, is you're always going to have the issue until there is a super solid, this is how you get in. And you can never do that if people are picking who gets to go in. And that is what the college football playoff committee does. And it's going to mean that players are, like, because there's no solid path to get in, that's why you're going to continue to have mercenary players. If there's a solid path to get in, and you go, hey, we just got to win a conference championship, you can build a program easier and better, I think, than if you're saying.
So I think 12 is too many.
Same. Because I think
you should have put it at 8.
8 it makes sense to me. And you
top 4 conference champions.
Yeah.
Get a bye.
And then the next 4 best teams.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, I would almost prefer it if you just say, if at that point even you go.
No, am I ever going to, it's just like, which football should never have this many ever, but it's just kind of like the basketball tournament. I'm not going to complain about more basketball, no, but we all know that we're wasting our time with probably 2 whole weekends because those teams are not winning this national championship. And like, it takes a lot to win like a big tournament style just like that. So like, with smaller schools, it's cool to see them have a shot, but they're not built for a tournament like that.
Right.
Best bet.
And yeah, and I think that's fair. But I think what ends up happening with the NCAA tournament is
That's literally the only reason why it keeps expanding. It's just because it brings in money. They know that only maybe 20 to 10 teams have a shot at winning, but the more that you grow it,
but you know what's interesting?
Have a real shot at money.
What I'd be interested to see, and this is maybe where we end on this, because I think this is maybe a good word of caution for the College Football Playoff Committee and like expanding it, is the farther and farther out they expand college basketball, or have expanded it. But like, I would be curious to know what the viewership numbers are like for like the first rounds versus the middle rounds, because honestly, most of the time in college basketball, unless Gonzaga makes a run because I'm a Gonzaga fan, or unless one of those Cinderella teams makes a deep run, usually the second weekend I've stopped watching.
No, that's just you, my friend.
I know, but like I don't think I'm like the casual, because I would call myself a casual college basketball fan. I think the casuals, and probably more so, other than like the diehards who sit there and watch every single game no matter what, I think a lot of people lose energy in the college, like in the basketball tournament, in the NCAA tournament, by the second weekend.
Don't do another bump and keep going.
I mean,
don't cry about it. Just you gotta grind it out.
I know, because like it loses so much luster because it's so long, and like I get it, like it kind of has to be. But I think I start getting fatigued, and I get it with college football playoff a little bit of like, do I really want to sit around all day to watch? I started it. I mean, like I do because it's college football, and like I love college football. But if you start getting a matchup between teams, and it's like, oh, I'm watching an 8-4 SEC team that is mediocre, but they're here because we've expanded to 20 teams or whatever, 16 teams. Like you're going to end up with a lot of like repeat matchups in the college football playoff, and it's going to get to the point where I'm just like, I mean, you got Alabama, Oklahoma this year. We don't need to see that game again.
It was a great game. Yeah, we do.
It's fine. We don't need to see that game again. That game's already been played. And like I get that teams are different, but we've already seen that game played. We don't need to be at 12 teams. Like because I think, again, and this is, we got to end it because I got to go to bed, but you have to. I think if you can look at what we have in the 12-team playoff, and you can go, 8 of those teams legitimately have a shot at the playoff, at the championship, you're fooling yourself. And if we're arguing it from an arbitrary standpoint of these teams we think are the best 12 teams in the country, okay, the top 4 teams are the teams that have it. I look at this year, I go, those 4 teams can win a national championship. The rest of them, probably not. Like I don't think, not even probably not. They're not. You can't look at Oklahoma and say they're the best team in college football. You can't look at Alabama and go, they're the best team in football. Oregon, James Madison, on and on and on. You can't look at those teams and go like, yeah, if they were to win a national championship in this playoff, I would think they were the best team in college football. Now, I mean, the argument would be if they could win through the playoffs, yeah, they must be the best team in college football. A playoff is obviously never going to actually end up working out most of the time, so that the best team's playing the best team wins. Like football's hard, playing on the field. But, which, I know, kind of whatever. But I just think it just, I don't know. the farther out you go, the less likely you're going to have teams playing. You're like, yeah, I think that's the right one. And look, college basketball proves it a lot of times. Usually one of the best couple of teams wins, and that's what happens every year in college football. One of the best couple of teams wins. And it's all kind of pomp and circumstance. We do this whole dance where we pretend like, oh yeah, all these 12 teams have a shot. Or in this case, most people will be like, 10 of the 12 teams have a shot. And it's like, no, they really don't. Like at the end of the day, I mean, like, again, if we're being completely honest and completely fair, nobody should get a bye. You're making, let's say, Oregon, well, let's go James Madison, just to have fun with it. Let's say James Madison makes a run. They have to win an extra game. How's that fair? You say, oh, well, they weren't. Okay, well, they won their conference championship. They did everything that Indiana did. They did everything Texas Tech did. They did everything Georgia did. They didn't do everything. They did more than what Ohio State did. So why does that mean they don't get a bye week? They have to play one more game. They're arguably a worse team. They actually are a worse team. No shot at them. And they've got to play an extra game that now Indiana gets break. And so I think you just start looking at all these things. I think it's got to get to an even. It needs to be an even number where you don't have bye weeks. It needs to be conference championships. It needs to be based in something within reality that makes it as even as possible for the best teams to actually win. And it'll still play out most years where the best team wins. Every once in a while, you'll get somebody that's not one of the best teams that wins. We have fun with it. We party. We let it happen. It's football. It's what makes football great. I'm just tired of having kick Notre Dame out of it. All this to say, if we've learned anything else, we're going to bed. Get rid of Notre Dame. Give Notre Dame the SMU death penalty. We don't need them playing football until they join a conference. That's all I'll say. So that'll do it. Let's get out of here. 2.5 hours. It's been a long time. We needed to talk a bunch. So who knows? Maybe we'll eventually do this again. Make it a little bit more semi-regular than once every 3 years, 2.5 years.
Maybe.
I don't know. We'll see. So let us know. Mattyice, MIATC show on all the socials.
That are not active.
I do still look at the Instagram every once in a while at least. Say something there, and then maybe the more you say, the more we'll do shows. Facebook, Mattyice and Chief. I think we're rolling around it. We're gonna figure out a new name eventually if we ever bring it back full time, and maybe some new artwork to go with it, and maybe eventually some merch. We'll see. Well, me and Patrick will talk. we'll have some discussions.
Baby steps.
Anyways, thanks for sitting with us for a little bit. Enjoy some college football. Enjoy the rest of the NFL season, and we'll see you guys next time, and ladies next time.
Oh, run! My tummy's rumbling. It's scary. Tommy's got the tum rums. In America it's bling bling, but out here it's bling bang, huh?
I retook what I call a wire shower. I rub my armpits with air fresheners. New car.
Oh yeah, I'm experimenting with some new entrepreneurial ideas. That one's called Sport for Suds. Dress loud.